Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Bite with Hutton Withrow underway on the Friday edition. No Withrow today in Nebraska. Holidays. Happy holidays to you as well. And Happy New Year. Kelly Stewart back in the saddle for Withrow today. And the Friday is here. The week in Nashville has been what? How would you describe it?
Very uneventful, and I love that for me. Every time I come to the city, I remind myself of why I love Las Vegas. It has been so awesome. K-State got the nice win last night. I got to watch from the joys of my private hotel room and got to freak out in peace, right? Like I didn't have to embarrass myself in front of my new coworkers. It's been great.
Well, thanks for being here all week. It's been fun, and the bowl games today have been fun. In fact, I said as we were at lunch, Kentucky's going to win this. They've got it easy.
Yeah, and you completely mushed them.
Well, so I don't believe in jinxes. I don't.
How can you not?
Why not? If Sox are lucky, right? Why lose the game if they're so lucky? You got to change socks like players do.
Okay, that's more of like a superstition.
But
mine is like more of like the announcer's like, he hasn't missed this kick in 38 tries, and then he misses it. That's more of like a jinx or a mush, or a team like last weekend, the Jets are up 21 at some point.
Right.
Everybody's like, oh, I should have bet the Jets, and then next thing you know, they almost blew the game. Those are the types of mushes I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the superstitions. Those are separate.
Well, coming up, we've no jinxes with Michael Fabiano. He's not going to jinx the.
Does that mean I can take off my
You
headphones
can
too?
as well.
Thanks.
The fantasy football award winners that'll be coming up from him, and who to start, who to sit. Also, we will dive into the idea that we can't tell you about Notre Dame.
Okay, listen.
We're going dark on this because
I don't care about other people's fandom because they don't care about mine. Like if I want to give a Notre Dame Oregon State update,
I care about
Colin.
Colin. He's trying to go dark on he's a massive Irish fan.
I love Colin too, and he's decked out today in all of his Notre Dame glory.
And he's missing the game in order to be here and help us on the show.
And I appreciate that, but this is a show. I may have to slip and give an update.
Should we just leave? Allow him to go watch the game?
Colin can just take the rest of the day off. Now I have headphone hair. That's all that matters, right? We're here. We're live.
We are. Michael Fabiano joins us in about 40 minutes. Also, Clay Harbor will be with us and will be on as a host on OutKick coming up next week. Last night, you crushed it. The overhit for Thursday Night Football before the game even really got started. They overhit it by halftime, Kelly. And from your perspective, I mean, your advice would have gone a long way. I didn't play the under. I wanted to.
And that's all that matters. I saved you from betting a loser.
You did. But I didn't follow your advice and bet a winner.
Okay, now, in all truthfulness, I also did not bet the over.
Okay,
I just simply said.
Makes me feel better.
There was something weird about the line move there, especially from when it went from 6.5 to 7.5. And I said, hey, I teased the Browns at this point, but then I also thought about coming in on the Jets. But the way the line ticked down because of everybody's primetime under associations and how they've been hitting at such a successful rate. And then that Jets defense getting absolutely obliterated. The Browns defense has been come back to life, but now the Browns offense is finally clicking. There was a lot of moving parts there where I was really happy that I got to watch the Pop-Tart Bowl in peace and not have to worry about the NFL game until the second half.
So there is a winner already for me for Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski. I know the odds are very close right now for a number of coaches, including, let's see, D'Amico Ryans, Dan Campbell, Shane Steichen, Mike McDaniel, all solid jobs. But knowing that Joe Flacco is the fourth quarterback and seeing their record right now where they're already in the playoffs and they could potentially win the division if Baltimore drops 2 games in the final 2 weeks coming up. The whole Deshaun Watson thing, the way they started, Watson's not playing well.
PJ Walker, I mean, it's been a roller coaster ride by Browns fans for my season preview on them. I said, hey, look, they have a tough schedule. They could start out 1-4. We have a quarterback who hasn't played since 2020. I mean, I was very hard on this Browns team because I was so high on the Ravens. They have exceeded and actually superseded expectations. So I would agree with you. Kevin Stefanski probably should win this award.
So prior to the season, I was on board with Cleveland in this regard. They had the highest ceiling and the lowest floor of any team combined.
That's
Ceiling and floor. And I also say, from a perspective of expectation, I was buying into Deshaun Watson on the high ceiling or lowest floor. But now with Flacco, why can't Cleveland put it together for the high ceiling? And that's due to Stefanski the entire way. And I was in a way. Stefanski to me was the NBA coach for the NFL team, meaning the guaranteed money was Watson, and in the NBA, the players control the organization if they're the superstar because of the guaranteed money. They're there, they stick and stay for the most part for the superstars. Watson isn't one of those, but he's paid like it. He's not playing like it. And Stefanski was on the hot seat, and now they're the 5 seed.
Do you think Stefanski was the reason why Watson came to Cleveland to begin with?
No, Watson came to Cleveland because of the guaranteed money.
No, I just mean, do you think he had a hand in that? Do you think he actually got a say, or that was just all general, like upper management?
I think it was ownership.
I do too.
Arthur Blank, he was in Atlanta on Watson. I mean, it was all ownership from that perspective.
I didn't understand any of that though.
Carolina, but this was Haslam, and he's now paired with Watson in an organization that has had quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. And this year it's been quarterback after quarterback. I know you're going to tell me the odds on Coach of the Year right now, and it's tight. But with one game to go for Cleveland, I don't know what more Stefanski can do to solidify and put an exclamation mark behind what they've done and what he's been doing as the leader of the organization without the superstar quarterback, without Chubb in the running game. And I'm still saying that defense, paired with the way Flacco's been playing, can go on a run like they've done right now and do it in the postseason too.
See the Pat McAfee show highlights yesterday where they brought Aaron Rodgers on and he said, hey, like I've never really met Joe. I've been told about what a great guy he was. And Pat says, did you know that he called the New York Jets after you got hurt? And they said, thanks, but no thanks. Like, had I known that before the game last night, my outlook on that game would have been significantly different. No wonder Flacco went out there. I said his passing yards, I thought, against that Jets defense were going to be significant. Sure enough, that was a Flacco statement game. Hey, you know what? I was sitting at home on my couch. Your superstar quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, gets hurt, and I'm not even a phone call.
Yes. And he rubbed people the wrong way in New York when they traded for him.
The guy, okay, so when he was on Denver's roster, we saw very minimal blips of him.
Right.
And I didn't think anything of it, right? Because I thought, okay, if he was a good fit, he would be the starter, right? We've seen what he was able to do with the Ravens. What was that? Now, 10 years ago?
It was 11 years ago that they went on the run and won it.
Okay.
And he had 11 touchdowns and 1 interception in the postseason,
right.
Super Bowl MVP.
And guess what? I think we're going to see a Flacco run here. Sounds like they're going to be sitting most of the starters next week versus Cincinnati. Kevin Stefanski right now minus 275. Implied odds right around 50% chance he wins it.
If he doesn't win it, who's winning it?
I mean, Dan Campbell has an outside shot of winning it, but when is the voting on this?
Right after the regular season. It's based on the regular season.
Then no. I would say if Dan Campbell, see, that's why I have a problem with all these awards. I never have ever kept up with them because a lot of them are all based on biased voters.
Well,
right. We've talked about comeback player of the year and how I think it should be Joe Flacco.
Right.
But because of the way
that got a lot closer last night too.
We can get into that as well. But the fact that there are emotional people placing their perceptive votes.
Yes.
Makes it really hard for me to make a wager. When I'm placing a wager, I'm doing it in a mathematical certainty with implied odds, with understanding that turnovers are going to happen. Quarterbacks are going to throw interceptions. There's going to be some variance. You cannot handicap a voter's variance. Well, you cannot handicap how they're going to change things emotionally.
I'm not trying to look at it I am looking at it from a Vegas perspective because I'm a believer in Vegas knows. They're dropping it for a reason, and they see the results. And they're going into a final week where they may not play their starters. They could potentially, if Baltimore falls this weekend to Miami.
I don't think they're going to.
And you go into a Week 18, Baltimore, if they were to lose to Pittsburgh, and you have a win by Cleveland over Cincinnati, that's how they would win the division. So that's where you could play your starters to get the home game in the postseason. But beyond that, if Baltimore beats Miami, they're going to sit Flacco. I mean, they're coming off of 10 days rest. That's the other argument here. 10 days rest and then another full week before they would be on the road in the wild card weekend of the postseason. I don't know how that Stefanski would feel about that. And maybe Flacco decides on what he wants to do.
And maybe now he has proven himself to make that decision, right? Maybe it's no longer a Stefanski decision.
Going through now the fourth quarterback, I don't know how you play the starter that is so red hot and the defense that shows up week in and week out.
It's almost like maybe you play him a little bit in the first half, right? Just
yeah,
to
like a preseason game?
To just stay loose, right? Stay game ready. But, okay, we're tied with Cincinnati. This game is meaningless, right, in a sense. All right, let's pull him back. Because also you want to make sure that whoever your now fifth quarterback is on the season, who have they pulled up from the practice squad at this point? Is it going to be PJ Walker? Is it going to be?
Or they could go to the rookie as well.
And that's where you kind of have to wonder too. Sometimes that sit-out week has been detrimental towards teams. Have you noticed that? It's almost like it derails them. It's like the teams with the late bye week when they start to peak. And all of a sudden they get that late bye week. And sometimes it's good for them, like it was this year for the Niners, where you get to heal those bad injuries, things like that. But what we're seeing with teams like last year with the Vikings, where that early bye week just derailed the team. You don't want that to happen either.
So P.J. Walker, they have Driscoll as well.
Driscoll, okay.
On the active roster. And their practice squad doesn't currently list a quarterback in Cleveland. So they're carrying 3. And if they didn't want to, the third quarterback would be on the practice squad. But, so many backups have been playing, Kelly. The practice squad quarterbacks right now are pretty bad at this stage going into the postseason.
It is pretty ridiculous at this point. I think that Cleveland's best move after getting the win last night is to reevaluate how healthy everybody is, who needs that extra week of rest, who doesn't, and then to go into that Cincinnati game. Because for Cincinnati, they have a very outside shot of getting into the postseason. They've got to beat Kansas City this weekend, so they kind of control their own destiny in that fact. Do I think Cleveland would play some of their better starters to keep Cincinnati out from a rivalry perspective? Possibly.
But not risk the quarterback play, though.
Exactly.
But only if you have the opportunity to host a game as the division winner, which would be remarkable given the circumstance.
Yeah, that would be.
How early they lost their run game and Nick Chubb.
Like I said, I got torched for my take on the Cleveland Browns. They had a tough schedule to start the season.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the last few weeks they've gotten to play the Texans and the Panthers and the Jets, and it's been a lot easier. But still, I mean, this team.
And really only 4 total quarters of solid play from Watson, and it was 3 quarters against the Titans, week 3, I believe, and then the second half in a great game for him that came back and won the game that ultimately led to him going to injured reserve.
I always like hypotheticals. Let's talk about this. So Flacco does lead them to, let's just say, they get into the postseason, they win a couple of games. Unfortunately, they lose, they go home. Where do they go forward? Watson's their guy. I mean, they paid him all of this money.
Well, they have
Does Joe Flacco get a chance with another team as a starter?
Well, with Cleveland potentially, but are other teams going to sign him as a starting quarterback? That's the thing.
I mean,
teams would if they're drafting a rookie, much like they did with the Titans with Tannehill this year.
I mean, I guess I would take him back in Denver at this point.
Think about the teams that will have new coaches. Davey, who asked this question a few weeks ago, I think he's spot on with the maybe 8 to 10 openings across the league. We've already got 3?
Something like that.
Yeah, and more to come. And I think
we definitely know there's at least 3, if not 4 more to come.
At least one coach to step down in retirement. I think Pete Carroll.
You do think Pete's leaving, huh?
I mean, how old? Do you know how old he is?
Pete's the same age as my dad. I know how old he is. He's 76.
It's
going to be 77.
Unreal.
I know.
Unreal. And I also think they'll have a new quarterback in Seattle. Geno Smith, there's an out in their contract with him this offseason after 1 year.
And it's funny. Geno is very vocal about freeing Russell. I thought that was strange in itself.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to say, right? After departing and getting your chance and winning comeback player of the year because of it. He's been banged up, but I don't think he's the quarterback of the future because they have that out after 1 year, the contract with
I
them.
don't know what Seattle's future looks like. That's a really good.
It's not
That's
Drew
a really
Lock.
good.
It's
It
not.
can't be Drew Lock. I'm sorry.
And the contract is pretty steep after this year with him, with Geno. And I don't think his play has warranted that. I think he's leveled off. Even though they're one of the hottest teams right now, after being one of the worst stretches of a team in the NFL coming into last week. They had lost, 4 straight?
Yes, but
And then they beat Philly, beat the Titans.
I think Seattle is really good at beating bad teams.
Yep.
And not good at beating teams in the middle, and then supersedes for about a game or two a year where they turn around, they beat somebody they weren't supposed to beat. Remember, they had Dallas on the ropes. I mean, they gave Dallas all they could handle in that game on the road. I was very shocked, to say the least. I didn't have a wager on the game, but I was very actually impressed, I should say, with the Seahawks going into Dallas and keeping that one relatively close.
Comes down to Goff. Which Jared Goff are you going to see play? Is it the guy that started the season, or is it the guy that we've seen recently in the stretch that no one really talked about? Because it was either the 49ers or the Eagles that were also in a really bad slump while Detroit's slump was going on.
That's a very good point.
But they've got it back now. And this week, they'll be in Dallas against Prescott, who is also heavily opinionated and thought less of.
Well, here's the problem. I believe get judged.
Now she is coming out and saying that playing for the United States is the quote worst job in the world. And she's saying this because of the criticism she garnered, which obviously she brought on herself by doing all of the horrible things that she did over the course of her career. One being that she felt super compelled to kneel for the national anthem and not show her pride for the United States, despite having the platform and representing the country in a way that very few people on earth get the ability to do. Listen, she's a leftist. We all know this. She is fully on board with biological men playing in women's sports. That's another thing that she was getting criticism for, which again, she should, because as a woman, she should realize that if she did allow biological men to play in soccer, let's just say, her success probably wouldn't have been even close to what it ended up being. Because as we know, I'm going to say it time and time again, men, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. Women, as great of athletes as they can possibly be, they just do not add up to what men are capable of. But obviously, as a Democrat, as an elite leftist, Megan Rapinoe feels the need to play the victim card, as they all do. I just can't get behind this. Playing for the United States is the worst job in the world. So let's just lay this out. Megan Rapinoe is a professional athlete. Probably the coolest job in the world. You get paid to live out your passion. Literally the thing that you started doing when you were a child, the thing that you would go out to recess to do, right? You are now getting to do throughout your life and now getting paid a ton of money to do it. Okay, that doesn't sound like work to me. That sounds like you just get to get paid to fulfill your hobby. You get to stay in shape. You get to meet the coolest people in the world. You get to travel all around the world. You have access to the greatest resources that all of us could even dream of having access to. Yet you're calling this the worst job in the world because you have to represent the United States, which, by the way, is the most tolerant country on earth. We have the most freedoms. We have the most liberties. Any immigrant that would come over to this country would be very thankful to be in the position that they're now in versus living where they fled so vastly from. It's just none of this adds up to me. But for Megan Rapinoe to say this does not really confuse me. All she likes to do is whine and complain, and I feel like she's teaching a horrible lesson to young girls. Not that she already hasn't been doing that by saying biological men belong in women's sports. But obviously, to be in this position of power, to have this influence and use it for really nothing, to not have the proper influence that you would want. I just can't get behind this. I hope this is the last time that I have to talk about Megan Rapinoe, and maybe now that she's out of her soccer job, maybe she should try to go fulfill another job. Maybe she should go work as a janitor somewhere where she has to clean up after everybody. And that's what she spends her days doing. I mean, thank goodness for the janitors out there. We wouldn't be able to get by without them. But I'm just saying.
Starting January 3rd, the only place to catch OutKick's original and fearless content. It's live on OutKick.com, our website, OutKick.com. Go there and just click on the Watch tab, and that can be your one-stop shop for all things OutKick. OutKick.com/watch. Comeback Player of the Year. Damar Hamlin was minus 425 going into Thursday Night Football.
Something like that.
Last night. And it's now a very close and tight race. The odds are neck and neck, basically.
No, not quite. Hamlin's still the favorite, about minus 150, minus 155, depending on where you shop.
That's quite the drop.
That is quite the drop.
And it's Joe Flacco right behind him.
Yeah, Flacco plus 120. The cheapest odds plus 115. And then Baker Mayfield kind of way back in third place at 10-1.
See, Baker has, I think, a stronger argument. He's been on, 4 teams in the last 12 months. Nothing was going on in Carolina. Cleveland didn't want him. And then all of a sudden the Rams happened. They had that final drive. And I'm looking around going, which Baker Mayfield is this? Because I think what really hurt him in Cleveland was the leadership factor. I don't think it was there either in Carolina. Short run in L.A. and now in Tampa Bay.
But it wasn't a bad run in LA.
No, it was fine.
It was like LA was good for him. It kind of gave him that spark to feel really good about himself.
Nothing to really figure out if that behind-the-scenes leadership, face of the franchise type guy was there.
That's fair.
I don't think he had that at the very end with his running with Cleveland. Because, I mean, it was when Odell Beckham Jr. left, the reports were like half the locker room was on Beckham's side, and then there was half the locker room that was cool with the quarterback. And we know how that ended.
Of course we do.
Both guys are gone.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, I'm thinking we still don't know based on the Rams' short run which Baker Mayfield this is. And guys have bought in Tampa behind him.
They sure have.
On a one-year contract.
I'm telling you, I was not buying in, right? Week 1.
Right.
They went in as, sizable underdogs, pulls off the upset at Minnesota.
Yep.
And then they kind of faltered there at home, lost to the Eagles, lost to the Lions. I'm like, oh, boy, here we go in Tampa. Yes. Todd Bowles, this defensive-minded coach, can't seem to win football games. And basically, since that Lions loss, they have been trending upwards in a very nice fashion. I do like the Saints this weekend and a buy low, kind of sell high spot on Tampa.
I can't wait until later with our NFL
We'll get into that. But I do think Baker deserves a ton of credit. I think Todd Bowles deserves a ton of credit. The defense has really been able to step up. And Baker's kind of one of those wild card type of guys.
Yep.
Where you don't always know what you're going to get from him, but he's going to go out there and he's going to make plays. He's kind of a gamer in that respect.
But this year, it's very consistent based on what we've seen. So 4 teams in a 12-month span, better passer rating than Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. And the numbers offensively, they're running the football in Tampa. We haven't seen that in a while.
Correct.
And, I mean, they had the worst rushing offense for a season and a half in the NFL prior coming in. And Baker Mayfield is coming off the best 2-game stretch of the year and, I mean, of his career. I mean, I haven't looked at his career, but it's what we've seen from him in Tampa, the 2 games to finish the year. They're in the driver's seat in the NFC South, which is nothing to write home about. But
Listen,
no one's talking about Baker Mayfield. They're talking about Flacco, and Flacco just got there.
I would agree with that, but I think at this point it's a 2-horse race. I really do, because here's what people are going to vote on: emotion or recency bias. There's not going to be anything in between.
Right.
So if we're going to vote on emotion, Damar Hamlin and what we all saw last year in prime time, they're going to vote on that. The fact that he came back and is on a football field, no matter how many snaps he's played.
We thought the guy died, and we watched it play out.
Correct.
That's how I viewed that Monday night game.
And so that, based on what I've been told and how people vote, most voters are going based on injury or something really significant happening in your life. Michael Vick, obviously coming back from prison.
Yep.
Those types of things.
And Geno Smith is the Baker Mayfield of last year.
He is. And so Geno was kind of that one little asterisk that was a little different there, because Geno just hasn't really shown over the course of his career what he was able to do last year, 1 year in Seattle. And also, there was nothing really significant last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was a devastating injury for anybody to come back from that should have been given the award.
There were Derrick Henry was coming back from injured reserve. There were a handful of injuries there.
Of course.
But not to the level of Geno Smith not panning out with New York. It's been a
What's with
terrible run.
Quarterbacks leaving New York and then going on epic runs their next season? That's something to be said.
You're saying it's great for Zach Wilson? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe I want Zach Wilson in Denver. Maybe that's what I'm saying.
So here's a couple of voters on this award. Dan Pompei in Chicago. Flacco is not a traditional comeback player of the year candidate, but he should be considered nonetheless. The award should go to a player who overcame something and accomplished something of significance. Arguably, at this point, Flacco fits that description as well as anyone, with the exception of Lamar Jackson, who might not get as much consideration for this award because he's an MVP candidate. Kaufman in Tampa. It would be a travesty to consider Flacco a better candidate for comeback player of the year than Baker Mayfield. Flacco has played all of 4 games, while Mayfield has been under center for a surging Tampa Bay team on the brink of clinching its 3rd consecutive division title. That's the comeback season. Shereen Williams says, there isn't a definition of comeback player of the year, so you have to make your own. My own criteria is player coming back from something, an injury most likely, not from riding the bench or having a down season. And Barry Wilner, while it's fair to consider anyone making any sort of comeback award, I would think Flacco would fall behind Baker Mayfield among candidates. Although he barely played this season, I would still cast my vote for Damar Hamlin. Regardless of his playing time, that's truly a remarkable comeback. So that's just a flurry of opinion based on Talk of Fame.
Those people all have a vote?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting, because I had said, I think it was on Tuesday when we started this conversation, that there was an 80% implied odds that Damar Hamlin was going to win. And I didn't think that he should win because he hasn't really come back. Yes, he's come back from...
You're saying to play a significant portion of the season.
Correct, right? Whereas Joe Flacco has come back and in 5 games, over 1,600 yards, over 320 yards per game, 13 touchdown passes, 60% completion, and a 90 QBR. So I would agree with you that Flacco should probably be in this 2-horse race, but it is really hard for me to want to place a wager based on people that get to vote emotionally.
So, the Hamlin comeback is remarkable to me. I don't know why we haven't heard or discussed more just from just from a sports fan perspective of what Bronny James has done, of what we've seen from the other USC player, a year and a half ago. And how quickly these guys have returned from a cardiac incident.
Keontae Johnson played for Kansas State last year. He was not cleared by the University of Florida, so he entered the transfer portal.
And
came back
was awesome.
And was in an Elite 8 game. I mean, those types of things are generally unheard of from an athletic standpoint, from a human standpoint.
I mean, from the emotions of how Joe Buck and Aikman and then Susie Colbert back in the studio, and how the coverage of that moment hit everyone. Non-football fans, non-sports fans are tuning into that. Like, hang on, what's going on? Because their husband, their boyfriend, whatever, their son, are there like, Mom, look at this. You got to get in here and see this. This is crazy. I've never seen anything like this. And as he he's carted off the field. You're thinking, is he dead? There was no update for a bit. And then all of the emotions poured in from literally everyone who's donating to his charitable causes, all of it. And then, just the coverage of his return to Buffalo after a week or whatever it was, and the fact that 9 months after that, and he returned to Buffalo for practice and was on the roster in the preseason, but played in a regular season game 9 months after that, I think is remarkable. On a near-death experience and a cardiac arrest. I mean, again,
I'm trying to think of how I felt that night because obviously I was watching the game, but I don't think that I had that immediate panic that you're telling me because
not panic, just like then the coverage was about the NFL wanted to resume the game.
Of course they did. That's what I remember more thinking about.
The players
were like, no, we're not.
We're not playing.
Yeah,
we're not playing.
And that was obviously the right call.
Yes, and the coaches got together and said, yeah, we're not playing.
So that was where my more focus was because I didn't think, because obviously we had never seen it before, that someone could possibly be deceased on a football field. That was never where my brain went.
Yeah.
I just remember there was a lot of discussion and then them saying, okay, the game's not being resumed, and texting with some of my friends being like, what is going on? I had not.
And then Twitter was,
of course,
social media era.
Is always way ahead of what's really going on, right? Like everybody's got their opinions out there. Of course, everybody's a doctor.
Yeah.
Twitter
but
doctors.
I mean, again, like in the moment, you're watching everything play out live. That's how I reacted to it, like just observing things from a 30,000-foot view. And though that night, I think resonates with a lot of people covering that game, either there or on the outside looking in. And the fact that he played is why he's the favorite to win the award. What Flacco's doing is also crazy because I'm still sitting here thinking the Browns can go to the Super Bowl. That defense is incredible. And they've lost their star running back, a team that has, in an era where the NFL does not invest in that position, they lose the guy that they have invested in. And then the guaranteed money player and controversial quarterback is down and out on injured reserve. And they're doing it with their fourth guy, and Flacco's tearing it up after the Jets have refused to bring him in.
So if you really think the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl, it looks
not win. I think they can make the run. I'm saying
okay, so then we think they can win the AFC?
Yeah.
So AFC is 14-1 to win the AFC, 37-1 to win the Super Bowl still.
And think about what those odds were when they're on their third quarterback. Backup QB. They're on Thompson Robinson, and the week after that, they're choosing to go with P.J. Walker, the veteran. They beat the 49ers.
I know they did. And it was like where everybody that had 49ers tickets was starting to panic. They thought, hey, this is the downfall of this team. They just lost to P.J. Walker. And
the idea that the team still buys in going through all of that mess. I love both votes there. Both have compelling votes. It's just the medical side of what Hamlin did and what he's done, and how everyone across the country watched it happen, play out live. And 9 months later, he's playing in a regular season game for Buffalo is remarkable.
So the reason why I brought up recency bias is because this is how people tend to vote.
Yes, you're right. And it's how you finish for the Heisman, too.
Exactly, right? So it's not what you did the first 6 weeks of the season. It's what you did the last 7. And that's kind of where I'm thinking, because DeMar was over a year ago at this point in time.
Yeah.
You're right. I actually, when you were speaking, I had to reflect. Where was I? What was I thinking about? Because sometimes people like me tend to put bad things, back on the back burner so that you don't focus on that. You focus on the good of things. And so maybe depending on who has a vote and what they've decided. But yeah, I want to say Damar Hamlin has been the front runner the entire season for this award.
Well, and by the way, whenever we discussed this earlier this week, I was guessing who was the front runner. I wasn't naming Hamlin. I wasn't thinking about him. But Vegas certainly is. They've got that locked down. But it dropped significantly.
Oh, yeah.
And reading through the comments, a lot of the voters are now mentioning Flacco. But they're not mentioning Baker Mayfield, which is
Except
odd.
for the guy in Tampa.
Well, yeah. But you're right. But is that the perception of Baker Mayfield and how he's been the journeyman because locker rooms haven't?
I mean, maybe for my geographical location, I've had Baker kind of in mind because it's there.
And no one's watching Tampa because no one's paying attention to the NFC South.
Well, why would you?
I mean,
there's nothing exciting about the NFC South right now. Right now, it's a bunch of mediocre teams in a slugfest.
And they're playing each other currently.
Yes. And so there's nothing, you know, I was supposed to take Grandma to the game on Sunday. She's a big Saints fan. And I said, yeah, we'll go to this Bucs game. Well, normally in Tom Brady era, this was a primetime game. When Drew Brees or not Derek Carr was the quarterback for the Saints, we would go to this game. Even last year, it was a primetime game. It's not anymore. It's a 1:00 game. And I'm thinking, this isn't going to work out well. And I'm sorry, but we're not going to go. And I bet I could get the cheapest tickets of the last 3 years. It's just nobody cares about the NFC South right now.
I mean, or the AFC South. However, C.J. Stroud has been the discussion for Rookie of the Year, and he's back this week.
And I'm glad he's back because we need something to get a buzz going there. Houston has been really exciting to watch as an underdog, and I've really enjoyed them.
Yes.
But my problem is here, now we're asking the Titans, the line's leveled out. I just pulled up the latest odds. It was 5.5 at the height yesterday. Now it's back down to 4. Maybe I could be enticed to bet C.J. Stroud here.
Interesting. I want to see if you're jumping on the road bandwagon with Levis coming back as well, with the two rookies meeting up. Coming up, we'll discuss quarterbacks, who to start, who to sit. Michael Fabiano joins us for the latest on fantasy football, so you get that win in the postseason. Next on Hot Mic.
It depends on certain things, but I feel like now it's like a teammate. Like that should be your partner, your teammate. Like I'm not cleaning all the house all the time because I'm not your mom.
I agree. We're double income, no kids, so I really like a partnership, but I don't want to take the trash out.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have to do that.
She takes the kids, I provide. Very traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that more young people should do that?
Yes. Very much so.
What is it about like a motherly quality that you like?
It's worked for thousands of years and it still works today.
I like being girly. I'm a girl and I like being girly, so I like traditional to girls.
Okay, well, according to the 7 Hermetic principles, one of those being the law of gender, or to say gender manifests on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all levels. Throughout the cosmos, there's gender. I don't know, it's a light. It's a book I read called The Supreme Way of Men or Women or something like that, and it spoke on how whether it's 2 women or 2 men, there still has to be someone who's masculine, someone who's feminine.
What would you spend on an engagement ring?
I'm not an engagement ring type of person. I'm like, but if she wanted a ring, I'd probably spend like 20 on it.
20 what?
1,000.
20,000. That's a lot of money.
Hey, and shit.
You don't get that lady a real answer.
Not for real. Ain't it how much she make though?
Price, I didn't really care. Size, absolutely. Had to be big enough it could be seen, and I didn't want like a basic ring. I wanted like eclectic, like vintage looking.
Okay.
So we did a custom order to do my ring.
I didn't have a preference. I just had a gold preference, and he kind of took it from there.
And you trusted him. Did he crush it?
Oh yeah, he crushed it.
I've been spoiled thus far, and so I don't think I could ever go back from what I received last time.
Okay, so high standards. That's good. What are the standards?
Okay, it was 5 carats,
Okay.
and it was beautiful.
Mine was way too expensive.
What's way too expensive?
Like $45,000.
You probably went with a real diamond.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of a flex for the guy? Like, is the engagement ring, is the engagement ring only for the girl, or do you get to watch other people look at your girl's ring?
Solely for the girl. Solely for the girl.
You don't get any enjoyment.
Couldn't care less.
Red flags in dating, because obviously you found each other. Did you have any icks that you overlooked, or is he perfect?
No, he's perfect. We had a nice night out at the bar. Fought over a toy shark, and that's how it all got started.
What don't you like? Red flags.
Cheating, lying, stuff like that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What are you looking for in a woman?
Honesty, respect, in love for herself.
Some green flags are loyalty and trustworthy, red flags are seeking attention from other women.
Jealousy, probably biggest thing, especially being around other girls all the time and having other girlfriends. That would be the number one thing, is jealousy.
Red flag is they're on their phone too much. Green flag is they're on their phone a lot with you.
Well, look for loyalty. That's it. I'm 24, so it's hard to come across that like when you're young. So that's really all I look for, really, honestly.
What were deal breakers?
If she was broke, I know that sounds crazy, but for real, if she was broke. Cause like it's like, yeah, like I don't want to take care of a motherfucker. Like I want to equal.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Kelly Stewart and Kelly in Vegas, now in Nash Vegas. Joining us on Tuesday as well, correct?
No, I'm going home tonight.
No, I know, but on Tuesday? I don't know. Are you on the show? I don't know.
That's a great question.
Okay.
I'm going to find out.
Maybe I just told you.
You might have just told me that I didn't know about.
We'll find out if Withrow is back or not from his snowstorm.
If he's still snowed
He
in.
is- he is.
If he is snowed in, I'll fill in for him. How
In
about that?
Nebraska. I take that to mean Kelly's not on Tuesday. So.
Listen, I am just a team player here at OutKick. If you guys need me, I'm there.
Love that. Also great, and every Friday, Michael Fabiano joins us. Fantasy football guru, expert. He crushes it. I can't wait to find out his record in the 112 leagues he's currently playing in. Michael, great to have you on the show again. And Kelly is all about the numbers. Give the numbers on how many playoff wins you have currently.
So the total was 15 leagues going in.
Okay.
Playoffs in 12. I'm in 5 championships. And believe it or not, the league that I went undefeated during the regular season is not one of them, which goes to show that one bad week, even in an undefeated season, can mean you're going home. I unfortunately ran into Amari Cooper, who didn't play last night. Why couldn't he have not played last week? I would have advanced, but it is what it is. So I'm in 5 championships.
Michael, all you need to know is that Clay Travis placed 3rd in our big money league. That should tell you how this year's fantasy league has gone for me and my group. The team that scored the most points did not even make the playoffs.
See, that's why you have to have a 6 seed that is the highest scoring team, not in the top 5 in the standings. Because fantasy football, let's be honest, I mean, you could know everything there is to know about the NFL. Luck is a big part of it. And so when a team scores the most points and doesn't get into the playoffs, to me, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah,
because I know ultimately, like the whole factor is that you want to win, but how do you win? You score points. So I think you have to reward teams that score a lot of points.
Yeah,
and
each
at least
week
one of those teams get in.
we faced the toughest defenses. It was so rough. But don't worry, I'm gonna have them clip that, send that to the group, and so that my voters for next year understand the significance of a team like that getting in.
All the high stakes leagues, and this is where people are putting up, a lot of cheddar. Those leagues, it'll start with the number 1 seed being the best record. The 2nd seed is the team with the highest point total, who's not number 1, and so on and so forth. I mean, we're trying to score points here. That's what's going to tell you whether or not you have a good or bad team. I've seen teams that have scored bottom 5 in terms of points, but they also had the fewest points scored against them, so they got lucky. And you want to try to eliminate that as much as possible. I know it's hard to do it completely, but at least rewarding teams for scoring a lot of points, like Tommy Dreamer, who is a wrestling hardcore icon, is a buddy of mine, and he's in one of my dynasty leagues. He was 5-8 during the regular season, but he won the 6th seed because he scored the most points outside of the teams in the top 5. He's in the championship. And he's like, how did I even get to the championship? I'm like, because you scored a lot of points.
Michael Fabiano with us here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Let's get to the stardom and situms, and from there we'll go to specifics. You like Brock Purdy on the road this week?
I'd like you against the Commanders. I mean, they stink. Like their defense is so bad, and they have injuries to the starters. So the starters stink. Imagine what the backups are going to be like. So Brock Purdy's, and he's also got to be a little bit salty after throwing 4 picks on national TV last week. I like DeAndre Swift this week against the Arizona Cardinals. They've allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs in the last 4 weeks, and Swift has seen 20 touches in 2 straight games. Javonte Williams has got the lightning bolts. Really, the only good game he's had in the last month and a half has been against LA. So I would play him against the Chargers. Nico Collins is getting CJ Stroud back. He's got a great matchup against the Titans. He is a very good play. Also going to go with Rashee Rice against the Bengals. I know the numbers were not great last week for Rice, but typically he's been better more often than not, and he's getting targeted a lot. So Rashee Rice should be in your starting lineup.
Before we get to the sits this week, would you start Lamar Jackson or C.J. Stroud based on C.J. Stroud coming back and facing the Titans defense?
Yeah, I go Lamar.
No doubt?
No, Stroud's got a great matchup, but I mean...
They've been very even for me this season. I've got both.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's defense, I don't know that it's great, and Lamar's coming off a really good performance. They're at home. I'd go with Lamar here. Tua
is not a play for you against... what is a good and interesting matchup against a Baltimore team that is on a week of short rest, and well, they just beat a great lineup.
This is a huge game in the AFC for seeding as well. And you could come out and say, well, the Ravens might let down after beating the Niners. The Dolphins might let down after beating the Cowboys, which, by the way, Mike McCarthy drives me nuts. Why do you give a fullback who barely touches the ball near the goal line on the first drive? Anyways, I don't want to get into it. I'm going to get mad. But
it's like Arthur Smith.
That is the Grinch of fantasy football in terms of coaches. But Tua, who had an awesome game against the Ravens last year, and sometimes these things go sideways, but the bottom line here is that Baltimore has given up the 2nd fewest points. If you follow the process, Tua is not a good play. Same thing with Tony Pollard, and I'm a Cowboys fan, if you maybe didn't pick up on that. The Lions have given up the fewest rushing yards, the fewest fantasy points, the fewest points on runs to running backs. They are very tough on that position. So Pollard is a tough play. And so is Devon Achane. Now, a few weeks ago, if I had put him on the sit list, you'd have probably fitted me for a straitjacket. The guy's been awesome.
Yeah.
Lately, not so much. I think he's a little bit banged up, and the matchup against Baltimore is not great. I'd also be aware Calvin Ridley. If Trevor Lawrence plays, and we're not sure if he's playing yet, if he plays, it makes Ridley a more attractive option than if it's C.J. Beathard. But regardless, the Panthers are tough on wide receivers, mostly because teams run the ball down their throats. And then finally this week, we hate the Drake. We hated the Drake last week. He didn't have a good game. We hate the Drake again this week against the Bears. They've allowed 1 touchdown to a perimeter receiver over the last 4 weeks, and Drake is not seeing enough targets. So did you guys get the Seinfeld reference?
Don't ask me about Seinfeld references because I'm not it. But I want to comment on your Trevor Lawrence, CJ Beathard statement there. We have to assume Trevor's playing until he doesn't. I mean, this man has never missed a game, right? At this point in time, that was all the talk last week.
Yeah.
They marched him out there, hurt or not.
Yeah, right. We're not sure right now. I mean, remember, the ankle and the walk down the tunnel where, where's the golf cart? And then, he was in concussion protocol and then he hurt his shoulder. I don't know. I mean, like cats have 9 lives. I don't know how many lives he has in terms of injuries and getting out there on the field. But we certainly are going to have to wait and see. That may not be something that comes down until a game time decision. But even still, he ain't 100%. There's a chance he gets knocked out of the game. That makes Lawrence a risk, even if he does come back. And again, the matchup's not great.
No idea if you have the numbers for this or not, but players, and specifically quarterbacks, coming out of concussion protocol the following week, do you trust that or not? Because, again, it's a slow progression to clear that process.
You so have C.J. Stroud, and you so want to play him, and you're trying to get all the information that you can about C.J. Stroud. I got to be honest with you, I do not have that information, but I will tell you this. I have not hesitated to start a quarterback who has been cleared in any week. Honestly, I like Stroud this week. The matchup is really good. Lamar, to me, is just a better option.
From this percent, Kelly, if she doesn't like a bet based on the line or not trusting either team, will just stay away from it. Is there a player week to week that more than likely you just try? You really don't know, so you don't stay. You don't say start or sit either way as far as the locks for you.
Well, I mean, I don't do that. I mean, I'm not afraid to tell people to sit Patrick Mahomes and I've actually done that a lot. And this year it would be him. Yeah. He hasn't been good. Like, I mean, and people will come out, oh, he's great. Dude, I'd rather have Brock Purdy this year in fantasy than Patrick Mahomes. In the last month, oh, by the way, breaking news, Trevor Lawrence ruled out. So he will not play. CJ Beathard will play. I'd rather have Joe Flacco in the last month. Joe Flacco's been awesome. I mean, the guy threw for 300 yards against the Jets. I mean, that doesn't happen. This guy was on his couch playing with his 5 kids, and he's out there throwing for 300 yards in one half against arguably one of the best defenses against the pass in the league. Maybe not so much lately, but Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, I hesitated to tell people to start him starting probably around midseason. I was like, this offense don't look right. And Kelsey's, in the news with Taylor Swift. God bless him. I'm so jealous. But, the numbers have not been great. And even Kelsey's coming out and saying that, it's been bad lately. It's been really hard because this team is not used to failure. And, to lose to the Raiders
at
home when they didn't complete a pass after the first quarter, like that's crazy town. So Mahomes would probably be that guy. I had Mahomes in one league and I got knocked out already. I had no chance because I didn't have another quarterback. I thought he'd be good and he wasn't. So
where would Jalen Hurts be on that list with the turnovers he's had?
Nah, I've never told anybody to sit Jalen Hurts. He's too good. I mean, the guy rushes for he's rushed for double-digit touchdowns in now 3 straight years. He's the only quarterback in the history of the league to do that. I would never tell people to start to sit Hurts. I think I might have told people to beware of Josh Allen when he played, it was the Patriots or something like that, or the Jets. I don't remember which one it was specifically. But
lost both. Lost one game to at least both. They played the Patriots this week.
Yeah. So, but I mean, typically you're going to stick with your studs, but this year has been the year where you're kind of like looking at, outside of the box, right? Mason Rudolph had 20 points last week. It was Christmas, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but like we've seen backup quarterbacks go bananas this year, right? I mean, remember that Thursday night game, Pittsburgh and New England, we're all like, oh, this game's going to suck. Bailey Zappi and at that point, it was Mitch Trubisky. Both scored over 20 points. It's like, what the hell's going on? Okay. You know that line from Ghostbusters, like cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria? That's kind of been what we're looking at with the backup quarterbacks this year. So I don't mind thinking outside the box. If you started Joe Flacco over Patrick Mahomes this week, God bless you.
Yeah, Michael.
Because it's been working.
As somebody who lost to Jake Browning, because that was the only quarterback they could pick up in the last week before the playoffs, that cost me the playoffs. I think he had over 30 points in that game. I mean, this was the year of the backup quarterbacks. I completely agree.
So there's one that's back in Stidham, another backup starting, and we've seen sparks. Just an example of my another league I've been to, and we got a minute left. Or, no, excuse me, 2 minutes left. I don't have Stidham. But I had Aaron Rodgers and then Anthony Richardson, and I'm playing, just anyone that's playing currently that was available in free agency back and forth. Do you ride the run that the backups have been on from a short perspective?
Jared Stidham has got a really good matchup this week.
Okay.
He's playing the Chargers, and I know Joey Bosa's not playing. Hell, why not?
Okay.
I think honestly, like it would not be crazy for Stidham to go out there against the Chargers and have a good game. It just wouldn't, because that's what we've seen this year. Like Tommy DeVito, for crying out loud, was a thing.
I know.
And Tommy, the guy is a undrafted free agent, all of a sudden was the toast of New Jersey. Not anymore, but it's just been a really wacky season. The 2 storylines from a fantasy perspective. Backup quarterbacks, you mentioned it, the year of the backup quarterbacks, and also the injuries. The injuries have been insane, not only to the quarterbacks, not only to the running backs, But the wide receivers, like anybody who comes and tells me, well, I draft wide receivers because they don't get hurt as much, that's a bunch of BS. The wide receivers have gotten hurt maybe even more so lately than the running backs have, right? We lost Tyreek for a game. We lost Pittman for a game. Keenan Allen has missed the last few games. We've lost Jamar for a bunch of games. Justin Jefferson didn't play half the season. Cooper Kupp was hurt a whole bunch of time. I could keep going on and on and on. Wide receivers have gone down at the worst possible times for us in fantasy this season. That's going to be another one of the storylines.
Michael Fabiano giving the fantasy football advice for your playoff season. Michael, thank you as always.
All right, guys. Happy New Year. Take care.
Happy New Year.
Check his great workout. Sports Illustrated. He's perfect on there. He's making the playoffs. Hopefully you are as well. Coming up, speaking of the playoffs, if a non-unbeaten team wins the title, Florida State, they're going to claim the title.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, second hour is here. Hot Mic with Honey Withrow across the OutKick network. The Pop-Tart Bowl, a success for Kelly Stewart's Kansas State Wildcats. She's celebrating by having one right now.
The s'mores not bad. I think this might be the first time I've had a s'mores.
The frosted.
Well, you have to have the frosted. Otherwise, it tastes like cardboard. Like, let's just be adults here.
Okay, well, I must like the cardboard. So this is the first time you've had the s'mores? I've never had one either. What do you have back here? Cinnamon?
Brown cinnamon sugar, which I was told was the best. I haven't known if I've tried that one in the last 20 years either. But, of course, strawberry cherry, by far superior. But bottom line, the Pop-Tart Bowl last night might be my new favorite bowl game. So there was a lot of, like, I don't know. No, not even
branding
hype.
that is just forced, like the play-by-play announcer who had his first Pop-Tart, quote-unquote,
that
Pop-Tart.
was obnoxious. That he was like...
Yeah, he like a mouse on cheese.
Yeah, like what? Just eat the Pop-Tart.
Right.
So the funny thing was...
By the way, Kelly said she didn't want to be eating on air. I just asked her a question while she's eating.
No, I didn't really take a bite. I don't want to eat on air, but it is funny because you're just sitting here like, some people are sipping their celebration cocktail. I'm eating my celebration Pop-Tart.
Yes.
So the fun thing was with the Pop-Tart Bowl back in October when they first started doing bowl projections, maybe it's even early November. K-State was supposed to win enough games to go to the Texas Bowl or go to a better bowl than the Pop-Tart Bowl. And because it was in Orlando in close proximity to me, I was like, I want to go to the Pop-Tart Bowl. This sounds like so much fun.
Yes.
And everybody's like, what is the Pop-Tart Bowl? What are you talking about? It's like the Cheez-It Bowl. Who wants to go to a Cheez-It Bowl? I think I now would actually enjoy going to a Cheez-It Bowl, too. I think we should have all bowl games have food mascots, and they should be all as awesome as the Strawberry Pop-Tart was.
But isn't it about the television experience more than it is being at the bowl game? You're not going to get the same hype surrounding it.
That's fair.
Right.
So I did not go to the bowl game because I'm here in Nashville.
Right.
My mom
the cutaways to everything, like the camera guy and all that, right?
The Pop-Tart was the most hilarious bowl game mascot I've seen, I think, ever.
It was well done.
I mean, if you watch the clips of him, I retweeted it earlier, and there's like a point where he's like dancing behind the ref, and even the ref is trying not to break a smile, and he's just got that smirk on his face. It's
like the Savannah Bananas.
Yes, it's fun. Bowl games are supposed to be fun, and we spoke about this all week, how bowl games are ruined because of opt-outs and the transfer portal and all of these things, coaches leaving, and these things all started in the 90s. But prior to that, these didn't happen until the end, right? Till after the national championship game. You went in, you interviewed coaches, people took new jobs, kids then it was like that bowl game was their chance to showcase their final game before going to the NFL or something of that nature.
And the coverage was more, at least I view it, and I perceive it as the coverage was more spread out to programs instead of those that had a chance at the playoff.
Right. Now it's, if you're not in the playoff, who cares?
Yeah, the hype surrounding the playoff by ESPN, because they own the rights to all of that, is focused, like laser focused on the teams that are contending for it, not the teams that are on the outside looking in, like we saw last night.
I mean, there was over 13 million people watching the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And watching your team win.
And that was the fun part for me. Obviously, had Kansas State lost the Pop-Tart Bowl in some horrific fashion, as only they could do, maybe I wouldn't have been this excited. But, like, they wheel out this giant toaster. Here he is, like, they kept saying they're going to eat, the winner's going to eat an edible mascot.
We discussed this after the show yesterday. And, like, what are kids going to think when the mascot is eaten?
On live TV?
Yeah, on live TV. They did this well. It was well done.
And it's all good marketing.
Yeah.
And Kellogg's is saying, hey, like, we got great feedback on this. Like, we want to do this again next. I mean, that is pretty disgusting to look. He only has like an eyeball left after what was completely devoured. But from a marketing perspective and somebody who has a marketing background, I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. It was really wholesome. I'm sure that the kids at the game had a great time, because that's where I really fell in love with college football, was getting to be the kid that my aunt would take to the bowl games.
They had the audience that multiple bowl games have not had.
Well, the good news is Kellogg's has 1,000 different brands that they could change it every single year and do a production like this. I don't understand why it's Tony the Tiger as opposed to whatever Frosted Flakes Bowl and using Tony the Tiger as the mascot, but like you could do something with him. That's the same type of branding. But if they make it fun, I'm telling you, the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl is ingrained in 13-year-old Kelly's brain because it was so awesome. It was the first bowl game I got to go to that I actually remember. And all I did was eat chips and salsa every single day. And that's it. And I had the best time.
You know, you think of when you think of the Sugar Bowl, you think of Allstate. Like they have branded that perfectly. And Kellogg's is doing that too. That's a great point. And social media-wise, they've got a leg up on that too with all the different ideas that they can pitch and then, pump up, hype up.
And it's just another example of we're going to see more bowls try to take this approach and use it moving forward. And I think that's only going to serve the fans better as well as, the players and teams that are actually participating in these games.
But they've got the advantage of you're bringing the mascot with it, right?
Yeah.
The visual aspect of post-game and what will resonate on social media and trend.
And listen, the Pop-Tart did not have a mascot until they created one this year, right? Like they just put a guy in a Pop-Tart suit.
Yeah, I guess.
There's never been, to my knowledge, a Pop-Tart guy that's been a commercial or anything, right?
That sounds right. I can't recall.
Yeah. So they
think of Mr. Peanut, right?
Right, but that's what I mean. There are certain mascots that are out there. So they created a mascot for a bowl game and then built an entire literal show around him, whether it was coming out of the toaster, whether it was going into the toaster, whether it was dancing with the refs. He was standing behind the goalpost with I don't know if it was a lacrosse stick or what it was at one point when the NC State kicker missed the field goal. He was over there to try to catch it. That guy should get a raise.
So you have the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I also think if you are a company that will have viewers Google your name, you have looking at some of these, the roof claim or Lockheed Martin.
Well, yeah, but that's because it's the military bowl. So they have to use a warmonger to do that.
You have Starco as one. I'm looking at these.
Never heard of that company.
Yeah, so I think that's also smart because you have the casual fan that's like, okay, let me see what this is about, and you at least get the eyes on your product in some way.
Well, hopefully it just shows people to think outside the box whenever you go out and hire a marketing firm for how you want to approach these bowl games. Because I can't think of a good example of what you would do for the Everbank Stadium bowl game, or I guess that was the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl. That's where they had that today. So,
but the Gator Bowl is already supposed to be iconic, right? Because it's been around for a long time in Jacksonville. Yeah. So, but yesterday the pinstripe Bad Boy mowers, which I own one, I highly recommend it. They're made in the United States. It's a great tractor. But why were they the pinstripe bowl, in the Bronx? Sometimes I think it has to correlate. Something has to match up.
Or the contract with the sponsorship matches up. They want back in somehow.
I guess so. But the pinstripe bowl being played in the Bronx, I feel like that type of branding didn't correlate, at least from my perspective.
And that's perfect timing for them with taxes coming up, right? You want
a very good point.
You want the automatic memory repetition. And also, think about sports in general. It's DVR proof in many ways. I mean, Colin's trying to do the DVR aspect with Notre Dame today. But
well, we've been very nice to him to not tell him that his team is absolutely steamrolling Oregon State.
Oh, you went ahead and ruined it?
I didn't ruin it.
Oh, you just don't know how it went. So you're looking at it from this perspective. You're not going to fast forward through the ads. And from the bowl game perspective, if you were looking for you want to resonate with not just you want your brand to be a product like Kleenex, right? The bowl game's a great way to do that. And will Cheez-It now do that based on what we saw from Pop-Tart?
The Cheez-It Bowl was already kind of funny in itself because it just sounds like a funny thing to say. Just like the Pop-Tart Bowl sounds like a funny thing to say. But yes, I think the Cheez-It Bowl really has to step up their game now. Otherwise, they are just far inferior to the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Dave, you agree with the Cheez-It? I'm looking at these. There's no way you can do what the Duke's Mayo Bowl does. But again, mayonnaise, you're thinking Duke's now.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, I know
Cheez-Its
at least they do quite a bit of commercials where they've already embraced the I woke up feeling the cheesiest approach. I I'm curious to see what if they try to bring something new to the table this year. I mean, that's one of those games like I'm going to be tuned in regardless because with the Citrus Bowl, that's my alma mater playing in it.
Well, and one of your star players has a Cheez-It shaved in the side of his head.
That's a good point.
Well,
I did send that to you guys. I thought maybe they'd have it teed up. I thought it was hilarious.
What? So
if I could do
what's
it,
he getting paid for that?
Oh,
I immediately thought NIL.
good for you. I just thought he just is bought into the Cheez-It Bowl hype.
But that's another trending thing, though.
Can the bowl game sponsor pay the athletes? They cannot.
Sure, they can go through the collective and pay.
Okay. Yeah, you're probably right.
I mean, that's I don't know the figure, but again, like they're getting retweets, reposts, whatever they're called now. Post on, you got the stories and the reels.
You're absolutely right.
Davey, would you be willing to have a Cheez-It as a haircut?
No.
What would be the price?
Couple grand.
You immediately
But first of all,
a couple grand.
Davy's hair is the brand. I think with this player, he already has short hair. What are we talking? A couple weeks? He just dyed a little.
Maybe hours. I don't know.
No,
you take the photo and you're done.
Oh, and then you just shave your head and
yeah,
call
because
it
you're gonna be
done.
wearing a helmet.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
You got an odd shaped head. You don't want to see me go bald.
Well, you could just have the patch on. You could have the.
You can just wear headphones like I do.
Yeah. Side of the headset's a bit different though than the football player playing in trying to hype up the game.
That's the only downside. Yeah, the headset would probably block at least where Ramel had the Cheez-It shaved into his head.
So, are we going to see Florida State claim a national title based on who wins the national championship? If it is the Seminoles unbeaten, but an unbeaten team isn't the champion in the
I
playoff?
hope they save themselves the embarrassment. Here's the problem. They're going to get absolutely boat raced by Georgia.
Because of the opt-outs and
They just
the
don't
feel
care.
of
They don't care.
Yeah.
So we saw it with
You're right.
Baylor, what was that, 5 or 6 years ago when they lost to UCF, and then UCF was undefeated when they were a game of 5 school, and they said, we're the national champion. They won, I think, as 16-point underdogs or something in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really sad because Baylor didn't care. FSU doesn't care, so it's going to be really hard. I mean, look, if they beat Georgia outright with a bunch of backups, with a team who's very unmotivated, Godspeed. But you can't. You just got to stop. At this point, you just take it and say, you know what, this sucks, and you got to move forward.
Yeah, and it is what it is. The hype around these matchups for the semifinals coming up is, I'm all in to watch Michigan and Alabama. You mentioned Florida State is going to, be boat raced by
They're 20-point underdogs.
But Kelly, I'm thinking, what would be the line based against Bama? No opt-outs.
If there was no opt-outs,
Right.
they would have probably been about 9-point underdogs, 9.5-point underdogs.
And I think it would be lopsided on the bets. Everyone would be taking Bama.
Yes.
Everyone's taking Bama against Michigan.
And they'd
right?
be about 10.5-point underdogs to Michigan. They'd be probably 8.5-point underdogs to Texas and right around a touchdown underdog to Washington. And that was not my argument when I said, hey, Florida State fans, this is not my argument for keeping you out. I absolutely believe they got robbed. A 13-0 team should be in regardless. But what I think there's a couple of theories that I have. When we saw Cincinnati get in, what happened? They got smoked, okay?
Yep.
When we saw TCU last year in the national championship game get smoked.
Yep, against Georgia.
I think that they don't want that to happen anymore, and they know that Alabama's going to put up a bigger fight, and they can't let Alabama in after they let Texas, or they can't let Texas in after they let Alabama in. There's a hierarchy here to this.
They went for the viewership and the perceived closer game, not the unbeaten team who went the hard way to get there.
Gives a rat's ass whether Stephen A. Smith is happy or not. Stephen A. Smith is not happy about the leadership of Steph Curry. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Stephen A. Smith, until ESPN got all woke and decided we need an African-American face, had been fired from every job. I remember driving into my show, and when he replaced, my man, I forget his name, out of D.C. I love the guy. I'm like, this is awful. And then eventually Stephen A. Smith got fired from that job. And I'm like, thank God we can get somebody in here. Well, Stephen A. Smith, because ESPN decided, oh my God, diversity hire. They hire Stephen A. Smith. And to Stephen A. Smith's credit, he has taken off and ran with it. Good for him. He's done a great job. He's easy to work with by all accounts. His producer ran a porn store. That's true. Had a porn company. But I digress. I don't know if she still is the producer. But one night when everybody got snowed in, I was just having a drink with a couple of guys, and she was sitting there, and they started talking about her porn company, and I was intrigued. Anyway, true story. Next thing you know, Stephen A. Smith played at Winston-Salem. He averaged no points. Smokey Gaines, legendary head coach, had to kick him off because he was such a pain in the ass. But yet somehow, someway, Stephen A. Smith can attack. That's right. He can attack Steph Curry. Now, look, I'm not mad at the premise. I'm not mad at the premise of, look, Golden State Warriors, why don't you do something with Draymond Green? But I am not happy with Stephen A. Smith being the guy. Here's what Smith said. Where's the leadership? Where's he at? What kind of impact is having? That is is he having? That's Stephen A. Smith on Steph Curry. Well, see, this is what you don't do. You don't respond back if you're Steve Kerr, because that is what Stephen A. Smith is dying to have. I told you the story, Eastern Conference Finals, Pacers and the Heat. I think it was. He's walking around trying to look important, and guys are laughing at him because they know he doesn't know jack shit about basketball. So Steve Kerr jumps back. For anyone to question Steph Curry's leadership is actually kind of sickening. Saw some of that yesterday. Disgusting. We're talking about one of the finest human beings that I've ever been around, but that's the climate we live in. We're going to question Steve Curry's leadership. Really? You're going to do that? Think about that. And Kerr's not wrong. Look, Stephen A. Smith is a gutless wonder. Stephen A. Smith doesn't have nothing. I mean, he don't have nothing. He's got no basketball chops. You hear him talking basketball on TV. He doesn't know nothing. I mean, he may know something compared to Chimmy O, whatever the hell her name is, or whatever the hell Doris Burke. They may know something compared to those two. But he don't know nothing when it comes to real basketball. He's a fraud. He's a talker. He doesn't know a damn thing. But anyway, Steve Kerr jumped right into it, and that ain't good. We're asking. Steve Kerr said, according to Stephen A. Smith, Steve Kerr didn't mention me by name. I'll mention Steve Kerr by name. Disgusted with him. Oh, good. Be disgusted. No one is questioning Steph Curry as a leader. What we said was, if that was LeBron James, we would have said, where are you? Stephen A. Smith's response, no, he wouldn't have.
Live from 6th and Peabody. Happy New Year to you. Going into the, hopefully for you, long weekend. Yeehaw beer, Old Smoky Moonshine. You like the blackberry moonshine?
I have not tried it. I have tried the Moscow Mule.
Okay.
I got that the first day. That was excellent. And then yesterday for the Pop-Tart Bowl, I got one of the margaritas. Now, I was a little hesitant.
It's the margarita moonshine.
Because I was like, well, margarita is supposed to be with tequila. It was good.
They can make pretty much any drink that you're used to with the moonshine, and it's either very similar or great.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah, just it was outstanding.
I was impressed.
Starting January 3rd, the only place to catch OutKick's original and fearless content and shows live, you're going to be on our website, OutKick.com. You go to the Watch tab at OutKick.com, and you won't miss a beat. You'll still be able to catch up on YouTube, but for all of our live unfiltered content, OutKick.com/watch, your one-stop shop for all things OutKick. Kelly, get into your best bets going into the weekend. And mine, I'm going with Bama over Michigan. And I would just take the money line on it. I'm laying the points on it. And here's why. I know you're in on Michigan. I want to hear why.
Wait,
you can
if you're taking the points with
Yes,
Alabama.
sorry, yes.
Okay, got it. So you're taking basically, well, you can probably get 2 points right now.
And
Then
I
you
guess
should
I
just take the money line. At that point, you should take the money line.
And here's why. I've backed Bama in this stretch, and I was totally against them going into the season with Milroe. And I felt like, that Saban had made the wrong call. And then he's ended up as, he's not going to win Coach of the Year. But I'm thinking this is the greatest coaching job I've seen with the talent level that probably isn't top 10 for him in the teams that he's coached and what we've seen as a result. Meanwhile, I still look back at Michigan's schedule and think to myself, what has happened once they've reached the college football playoff? We discussed the physicality in the trenches. They did great against Penn State, did it again against Ohio State. But once they reached the playoff, there's a reason why this offseason they had the Georgia drill, the Georgia period in their offseason work. Can they match up against Bama? They haven't shown us that in the past. They have shown us they've been the muscle up front in the past in their conference, and they did it again. I think we see something similar. I think it's a great game. I'm still taking the Crimson Tide based on just what I know Alabama is known for and what I know Michigan hasn't been able to prove at this level.
So I took Alabama in the SEC championship game. I said they were going to win the game outright. I took them last year in the SEC championship game, said they were going to win the game outright, and then turned around and took Georgia. The reason why you want to take Michigan here is because if the bookmakers know that all of the money that's going to come in is going to be on Bama, regardless of the number they march out, why march out Michigan -1.5? Why not march out Bama -1.5? Because you're going to get the money anyway.
Because of how does Vegas value Ohio State?
Well, so here's the thing. I think a couple different people have multiple opinions. That's the good thing about power ratings. They're unique to each person because different metrics go into play. I'm going to go ahead and say that probably most of the Vegas bookmakers have Ohio State between 5, 6, and 7, depending on what metrics they weight differently.
And so you're saying they would value Michigan. They're tricking the average
I think
fan.
Them putting Alabama out there as a dog says, Alabama's an underdog in this game. Come on and bet them. And people are doing it hand over fist.
Trusting more in Harbaugh and J.J. McCarthy than Saban and Milroe. But here's the other thing to consider. And again, I think it's a great matchup. And again, I don't hate the fact that Bama's playing Michigan, Florida State isn't. That doesn't mean I don't think the Seminoles don't deserve to be there. But again, the argument can go to it's not most deserving. We saw Bama win the physical matchup against Georgia. We saw them lose that matchup against Texas. That also resonates with me, and I wonder what happens with Michigan, given the fact that we've seen Bama do one and the other this season.
Do you think that Georgia thought, like last year, if they lost the SEC championship, they would still get in? Because I actually do. I do believe they had such an arrogance level that they thought, even if we lose this game, we're still in.
Oh, you're saying this year?
Yeah. After losing last year and still
I was surprised that the number one team in the country and a two-time national champion back-to-back years isn't going for a three-peat as a 4 seed in the college football playoff.
I think that they didn't play their best game in the SEC championship game. I'm going to leave it at that. Here, I'm going to give you a couple stats that
No one's saying they got robbed, though. It's all about Florida State, unbeaten.
Oh, I don't think Georgia got robbed. You have to win your game. Florida State won their game. Georgia did not.
But
if Georgia would have won their game, or Auburn, for that fact, would have played any semblance of defense, which they had all season long, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
But here we sit looking at...
Had K-State had just kicked the field goal on 4th and 12 instead of trying to run a stupid play with an unmobile quarterback, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
So you lay the points and take Michigan.
I'm gonna tell you this right now.
You've been on a roll here, so I'm hesitant to tell you my best bet is Alabama.
No, it's okay. I want to give you some pointers that are going to go your way because we can talk till we're blue in the face about the matchup. We can talk till we're blue in the face of what the lines are. Let's talk a little trends and angles here. Alabama covered 8 of their last 9 against the Big Ten. Alabama 4-1 in their last 5 games as an underdog, which, mind you, dates back to 4 seasons because they're never an underdog.
You're
That's
right.
Nick Saban as an underdog. Here's my one caveat with laying it with Michigan. Harbaugh has not won a college football playoff game. And I have seen 2 of them in person. And it has been bad.
What's the line if he were suspended for these games?
Well, I do think that they're going to bake it in, but we've proven that it doesn't matter if he's there or not.
Yeah, because he's still coaching during the
I had a
week.
great number on Penn State. Didn't matter. Thought Penn State, I think I was getting 4.5 and went down to 3. Didn't matter. Michigan absolutely dominated James Franklin and that game because he has the right people in position to be able to run this team for him. That's what good head coaches do.
Yeah. How you think this is another factor. Michigan's reaction when they saw that Bama was the opponent and not Florida State. They didn't want Bama.
Nobody wants Bama. Are
That's
you
my
kidding
point.
me? K-State played
That's my point.
in the Sugar Bowl last year, an Alabama team left out of the college football playoff, and I thought, oh, Lord, you just beat TCU in the Big 12 championship game, and now you have to face a Bama team who doesn't care. And K-State marched out there, up 3 scores, couple of quick, deep passes. Next thing you know, tie game, and then end up losing. Nobody wants to face Alabama.
They're the best college football team in the last 15 years, right? But this Michigan team, again, I'm riding the fence here, but I'm taking Bama. It's a veteran team. It's why Harbaugh came back and why I think he's bolting, because they're losing a ton of players after they either finish their season in the semifinals or in the championship game. That also plays a massive factor in this. But we've seen reload, not rebuild, for Alabama year after year after year.
Yeah, until we didn't. I mean, there was some dicey moments for this Alabama team this year. Tennessee went to town.
I know.
Had a chance to have them on the ropes. Ole Miss.
Down 10
USF.
at halftime. That's where it turned. That's where
It did.
against Tennessee.
It did
Down
turn.
10, and then they come out and win that game, and they turned it around. And that was when everyone was saying that Bama wasn't Bama, that Saban was done after this season.
Well, it
They
wasn't that he
come
was
out-
done.
When I say like the buzz was he's stepping aside, and he's either going to college game day or he's going to do something else or whatever. He was burned out with what he was seeing.
Well,
there.
and the
Milrow
landscape-
wasn't the guy, but
No,
now he is.
And the landscape of college football has changed enough to where I could see some of those old school coaches getting really frustrated, whether it's the transfer portal, whether it's the NIL,
Even the
whether
new
it's,
guys.
it's the guys that are traditionally used to sitting on the bench for 2 or 3 years and earning their spot. Those guys aren't anymore. They want to play, and they want to play now.
What do you think of the evening matchup, Texas and Washington?
I want to love Washington more than I do. I get accused a lot. I know yesterday I was trolling Brett McMurphy a little bit on the show about hating K-State, but I get a lot of grief about hating Texas, and I don't hate this Texas team. I just think that they're consistently overvalued. What did we see from Washington this year? We saw a dominant performance against Oregon the first time, where they let Oregon back in.
Oregon misses the field goal.
Oregon misses the field goal. That was dicey. They didn't let that happen in the Pac-12 championship. And I was kicking myself for not betting them on the money line in that spot.
Were they 10-point dogs in that game?
And I kept asking, I was like, what is going on here? And everybody said, well, we've got Oregon power rated this high. We've got Oregon power rated this high. And of course, Oregon's going to get their chance on New Year's Day versus Liberty to see how high they really are power rated here. But there was several spots when Quinn Ewers was out that I bet against Texas. I bet against them when they were laying 34 to Rice with JT Daniels. And I said, are you insane? They don't care about this game. The Houston game, Malik Murphy comes in for a hurt Quinn Ewers. I got a little lucky there. The Kansas game, I came back and said, you know what? I don't want any part of this Kansas game. Texas finally is going to be able to get the best of this team. And then I came back and bet against them 3 more times, only covering one of the last 3. And that was because with a healthy Quinn Ewers, this team is very dangerous. And that's where they're at right now. I like Washington a lot. I think Washington is sneaky to win this whole thing. It was as high as 7-1 to start the week. We're seeing now 5-1 4.5 to 1, which is plus 450.
Yeah. With the coach of the year and what they've done as the dog.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to talk about Bama, Michigan being the matchup. I think it's going to be a more defensive battle from the Michigan standpoint. I could see it being a lower scoring, more boring game. I think we're going to see fireworks in the Washington-Texas game. And I think that's what's going to make it more exciting. But nobody seems to want to talk about it because it's not the sexier matchup for whatever reason. Maybe because they played last year in the Alamo Bowl.
Oh, so we'll get to your other bets in just a moment. Forecasting here. If Texas wins by double digits or whatever against Washington, how does the championship game open up in your mind, spread-wise, against Michigan or Bama for Texas?
So if Texas wins by double digits
Against Washington, the perception of them.
I think either Alabama or Michigan will be a very slight favorite.
Kind of like we're seeing with Michigan and
Yeah,
Bama.
-1, -1.5.
And if it's a tight window game, field goal game like we saw against Oregon,
We could see it as high as
and you jump on the
3.
points.
I'd be curious to see how Texas would match up against a defense like Michigan. We've already seen how they matched up against Alabama in a rematch. We do know how hard it is to beat a team twice in a year.
Yeah.
Texas was a 6-point underdog in Tuscaloosa. I think they'd be, regardless, I think they'd be probably about no higher than a 2.5-point underdog to Alabama, because that bias from what happened in Tuscaloosa is going to be built in, because that was not a close game.
No.
On the road in a
No, it
hostile
was
environment.
not.
I mean, Texas from start to finish dominated.
And Ewers was a big game quarterback that night.
He was.
Is it weird? This is just a weird feeling. Is it weird that I think we're going to see Arch Manning? No one can predict an injury, but like
Can you tell me why we haven't yet? I have my own theories. That's why I'm asking why you think we haven't seen Arch Manning.
Well, they're protecting him for how he will play, or they're moving to the SEC and they're starting his.
They're not. Quinn Ewers is coming back next year.
Well, but if Quinn
That's why
Ewers,
Malik Murphy
if
left.
Texas wins the national championship, does he change his mind? Davey brought this up before the show today. Davey, your theory on this?
Well, it makes sense. I mean, again, this kind of goes back to the transfer portal window and why Coach Sarkisian wanted Malik Murphy to finish out the season with Texas instead of going ahead and committing to Duke. But if you are Quinn Ewers, if you win that national championship, is your draft stock going to be higher next year? Why would you wait and come back another year for Texas? And if that's the case, we know Arch Manning's going to be the guy they go to moving forward. So it really just kind of poses the question of, if you're Texas, I mean,
it's
you win that championship, it's all
thought.
Manning at that point.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Davey, the reporters we had on from Austin were a bit surprised with the news, based on the fact that they had Murphy at the time when we were discussing, and they had Manning, who was sitting out the year, the red shirt, and then he was going to be the heir apparent to the throne. You're playing him. You landed Arch Manning.
They landed Arch Manning. I don't know how good Arch Manning is.
That's fair.
None of us do, I don't think, unless you're sitting
We're going to find out.
His high school competition was not very elite.
I know
put it nicely.
I know how successful. Has a Manning ever failed?
I'm not okay, but look.
Due to injury, yes.
Due to injury, yes. Cooper Manning has failed, and that is Arch's dad, correct?
Correct.
Yes, but Cooper Manning is still
Should
uber
have been
successful.
Supposedly, he should have been the best one.
The fact is, we know the third Manning from Archie. Like that. I mean, that's my. And we have Arch Manning because of Cooper. Well done. Again, like
Last time Texas was in the national championship, the quarterback went down.
again, tough to predict all this. I'm not saying that I see the future. It's just a weird vibe about how this college football season has been. We discussed a 4-win team in Colorado for months, and now it's Texas that is, we're all assuming, is beating Washington in the college football semifinal. More from Kelly next.
What would you spend on an engagement ring?
I'm not an engagement ring type of person. I'm like, but if she wanted a ring, I'd probably spend like 20 on it.
20 what?
$20,000.
20,000. That's a lot of money.
Big and shit.
You don't get that lady a real answer.
No, for real. Ain't it how much you make though?
Price, I didn't really care. Size, absolutely. Had to be big enough it could be seen, and I didn't want like a basic ring. I wanted like eclectic, like vintage looking.
Okay.
So we did a custom order to do my ring.
I didn't have a preference. I just had a gold preference, and he kind of took it from there.
And you trusted him. Did he crush it?
Oh yeah, he crushed it.
I've been spoiled thus far, and so I don't think I could ever go back from what I received last time.
Okay, so high standards. That's good. What are the standards?
Okay, it was 5 carats.
Okay.
And it was beautiful.
Mine was way too expensive.
What's way too expensive?
Like $45,000.
Okay.
Wow.
You probably went with a real diamond.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of a flex for the guy? Like, is the engagement ring, is the engagement ring only for the girl, or do you get to watch other people look at your girl's ring?
Solely for the girl. Solely for the girl.
You don't get any enjoyment.
Couldn't care less.
Do we think gender roles are a thing of the past, or we should bring them back?
I feel like it depends on certain things, but I feel like now it's like a teammate. Like that should be your partner, your teammate. Like I'm not cleaning all the house all the time because I'm not your mom.
I agree. We're double income, no kids, so I really like a partnership, but I don't want to take the trash out.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to do that.
She takes the kids, I provide. Very traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that more young people should do that?
Yes. Very much so.
What is it about like a motherly quality that you like?
It's worked for thousands of years and it still works today.
I like being girly. I'm a girl and I like being girly, so I like traditional gender roles.
Okay, well, according to the 7 Hermetic principles, one of those being the law of gender, gender manifests on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all levels. Throughout the cosmos, there's gender. I don't know, it's a lie. It's a book I read called The Supreme Way of Men or Women or something like that, and it spoke on how whether it's 2 women or 2 men, there still has to be someone who's masculine, someone who's feminine.
My friend, do you know what Riz means?
Yeah, Riz is like, it's like game. You know what game is? Like when you're trying.
I don't have any, but I know what it is.
It's like the new word for game. So meaning like you're able to speak well and get, a date kind of.
I do not.
Do you have any guess?
I can guess.
What do you think?
It's like, I don't know, razzle dazzle, I don't know.
Kind of. Actually, you're not too far off. Charisma.
Riz, charisma, I've been able to talk someone up.
Did you read that online, or did you already know what that meant?
I'm on TikTok way too much.
Okay, another word that has become very popular this year. Do you know what mentee B means?
I don't know any of this stuff. I'm not on social media. I don't know any of it.
What about mentee B? Do people use the word mentee B in real life?
What is that?
You don't know mentee B?
I've never heard of mentee B.
A mental breakdown?
What?
Mentee B.
A mental breakdown.
You have a mentee B every night.
But I like that. I didn't know that, but I like that.
Mentee B, is that like the chocolate mint thing?
What does mentee B mean?
I have no idea. I don't know what that is. Mentee B, you ever heard?
You don't know mentee B?
I've never heard mentee B. Never in my life.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. How about CBS going there with J.J. McCarthy before and after Connor Stallions? We haven't heard his name brought up much since everything died down for the suspension. Again, it was the talk of everything. And now they're in the college football playoff, and the suspension from the Big Ten is like, oh, they've served their suspension, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, they've made their way in, they won without it. But how about just the numbers, Kelly? Before and after Connor Stallions resigned, quote unquote. 8 games before, 5 games after. Completion percentage down by 10%. Passing yards per game, 225 to 166. And then 18 touchdowns to 3 interceptions in the 5 games after, 1-1. That's the thing that stands out the most to me. And they're doing it through the run and all that. Yeah, that's fine. I get it. But
But Michigan's kind of been on cruise control since they beat Ohio State and Penn State, I feel like. It's just been kind of like the Big Ten championship wasn't anything to write home about. They didn't need to have any explosive offense.
And that's I can hear that the point. It's just the 3-game suspension is kind of like, oh, he's served his time. And I just don't – it was very predictable.
Where does Connor Stallions go from here?
That's a great question. Podcast, you know?
Is that what we all do? We just get in trouble and start podcasts?
Or date Taylor Swift and, go off on how your team's playing. Kelly, give us your best bets for the weekend going through New Year's, and then we'll get to our dumpster fires of the week.
It's tough. We've seen a lot of big moves here. I feel bad. I can't give out Ohio State -5.5 when I have it +1. That is just a completely different bet. So what we saw was Ohio State opened as a 6-point favorite. Line gets completely pushed the other way with all the opt-outs, Kyle McCord and so
that
forth.
Was a surprise,
and whether or not Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be playing, which it sure kind of looks like he might be.
But did he miss practice this week?
He did, but does he need to practice?
No, but does he need to play?
At this point, you got to start looking at Mizzou again in this spot. Penn State, Ole Miss. I wanted to like Ole Miss here. This line just keeps going the opposite way. I have no opinion there. I kind of lean towards Maryland here. Auburn, while albeit has one of the better defenses in the SEC, I'm not sure how much they really want to be here. This is a team that just...
They did win the hot chicken eating contest this week.
Oh, good. You have some insight on the Music City Bowl. Let's talk about it.
It was just a kickoff party with both teams and administration, sponsorships. You've got the executives from the Convention and Visitors Bureau here in town. There's a massive hot chicken eating contest. Auburn, they won. The winner ate 7 of them, which is from Prince's Hot Chicken, which will light you up on their high level.
It's that hot? Okay.
It's rough.
Now, previous Music City Bowls you've covered, have the winners also won the...
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Not
There's
necessarily.
no correlation?
Well, no, because a lot of times they'll put the backups in, or they're on the roster but they're not playing.
They're giving you the big old lineman that's like the third stringer guy, because in case, okay, got it.
But they were happy to be there as a team earlier this week. Same as Maryland. The buzz around this matchup is not there. I'm with you.
No, it is not. And I lean Maryland with the touchdown there. We mentioned Georgia, 13.5-point favorites, all the way up to 20 with all the Florida State opt-outs. At this point, you just got to say, okay, this is not a bettable game. You missed the good number on Georgia at 13.5. You can't bet them now at 20. That is just not something I can condone. And I just don't think FSU cares to be there. And they could just absolutely get throttled. Now, does that mean the backups aren't vying for a position? They don't want to go out there and play for Mike Norvell? Could absolutely be a thing. Toledo, Wyoming. I love this Wyoming team. They've been great to me as an underdog all season. I'm not laying 3.5 with them here. Badgers, LSU. LSU, lots of little tiny rumors about Brian Kelly maybe jumping ship there in Baton Rouge. Something to keep an eye on. They're 10-point favorites. Wisconsin just really lacked.
Family. I can hear that now.
Oh, God, it's so bad. Iowa, I did take the 8 with the Iowa Hawkeyes before the Nico news came in at 6.5. Kind of be wary there. I'm kind of curious to see what we're going to see from the highly touted recruit there for the Vols.
Makes it watchable.
I wanted to bet on Liberty plus 16.5. I really did. I really like what Willie Corn's done with that offense. Oregon could be a little fired up. We know they have the offensive firepower. These two teams could really be sharing scores. That's why the total's 67.5, and I want no part of that under. And we've already talked about the 2 college football playoff games. I am on Michigan, and I am on Washington.
So is there one that you just feel like is your guarantee, your lock?
No. These are bowl games,
I know.
Hutton.
It's tough.
No, I can't.
But you dive into the numbers significantly.
So this is what I normally do. The day the matchups are announced and the numbers get put out from a bookmaking perspective.
You're looking at the 13 for Georgia.
I want to look at everything.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, well, we've already got 1,400 kids in the transfer portal, and we have no idea who wants to play. Why would I put my hard-earned money on some of these bowl games? So then you wait, and you miss the best of the number, or what happened to me in the UNLV game. I got the best of the number. It still didn't matter. There's been a lot of a lot of roller coaster rides, if you will. I just got very lucky. I had 5 with Kentucky. The line closed 3. It ended up pushing if you laid 3 with Clemson, or some people lost with the hook there. Kentucky had every reason to win that game. Before, when you and I had lunch before the show, I threw a little bit on Kentucky money line. I like the line move in my favor. These just are really tough. We've seen a lot of weird calls. We've seen a lot of turnovers from some of these backups. The kid for now his name escapes me, for Oklahoma, it was highly touted starting quarterback for Oklahoma last night. Every time I flipped back to the Oklahoma-Arizona game, Arnold, thank you.
Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, was throwing an interception. The Sooners' offense could have easily beaten Arizona, but there were so many mistakes made. It was almost like the first quarter he had to get those jitters out. He threw 2 picks.
Yep.
They come back, they're up, and then he has that like fourth quarter jitter that he just had in the first quarter. It was a very weird game. And granted, I didn't watch it in its entirety. I kept flipping back and forth between that and the NFL game. But I had Oklahoma +3. I was given by a sharp group, and then I had Arizona in my college football wins pool. So I kind of had this like weird, like, let's just hope Oklahoma loses by some weird score, 21-20, 31-31 kind of thing, and I can win both.
That would make your best and worst of 2023 if you won that later, coming up in hour 3. NFL, though, you do have a feel because you hit the over last night, or you recommended it. You didn't play it.
Well, I had
for Cleveland.
So we recommended on the fade.
Yeah.
Gave it out. I told you to be very wary on your under, but of course I did not.
Away.
I did not bet it with my own money.
Check out the fade with Kelly and Clay Travis at OutKick.com. What do you like this week in the NFL?
Do you want me to start with my best bet, or you want me to run through everything else and then
your best?
Okay, so my best bet this week is the Colts. I laid 3.5 with this team. I bet against the Raiders last week, coming off that long week, thinking, okay, Aiden O'Connell. Hey, no offense to him, the guy is not very good.
No.
And last week he wasn't very good.
No.
But the Raiders defense was good enough to take advantage of a Kansas City team in disarray and was able to go into Arrowhead and get the win. I think we're seeing way too much love for this Raiders team. Colts kind of control their own destiny right now, right? So they've covered 5 of their last 7. Gardner Minshew, well, I have not been his biggest proponent this year. I do think that he will give this team a boost with Michael Pittman returning. It does not look like Jonathan Taylor is going to be back. Is that correct?
He's missing again?
I saw questionable. Last I looked, he was still questionable. And sometimes we don't get answers until after practice. Today, it's still, practice should be ending. We should be getting answers here really soon, whether he's going to be playing or not. Michael Pittman Jr. did get upgraded to probable yesterday, but I did not see whether Jonathan Taylor was going to be playing or not. The difference is, I don't know if it really matters. I really don't. I think he is a great running back, and I don't want to discredit him, but it seems like they've started to build the offense in a way that he's not as missed as maybe he should be.
Over-unders, anything jump out to you?
I didn't play any totals as of this weekend. Totals are not my forte, so I usually have like other people that I like to lean on. So those guys did like the under 41 in Seattle. Pittsburgh kind of got a lot of love last week as 2-point dogs. I played them versus the Bengals. I put them in a bunch of teasers. Mason Rudolph probably gets brought back to earth by the 12th man. So I do like the under there. And another couple of them that you can keep an eye on that have been trending in that direction. I do think the Detroit-Dallas Cowboys game, while it looks to be fireworks, open 53.5, it's down to 52. That kind of tells you big money. No matter how many people keep playing the over, the big money keeps pushing it down. So keep an eye on that one. And just be a little wary if you do. I agree. I think it could be a shootout, but it could be, one of those types of games where it's within 3 or 4 points, last minute field goal, but still stay under. I mean, 52 points is a lot in an NFL game.
It is, especially this year. Dumpster fire of the week. We give our worst of the week, and I'm going back to this past weekend with the AFC South to kick things off, guys. AFC South is turning into the finish of the NFC South. No one wants to win right now. The Jacksonville Jaguars can't seize it. Now they're without Trevor Lawrence this week. Meanwhile, C.J. Stroud comes back. The Texans can't take full advantage of what the Jaguars haven't been able to do at the top of the division. And all of a sudden, the Colts are there too. I never expected them to keep pace, but the other two are allowing them to do just that. The Titans are not a good football team. I don't know who is going to be the best of a bad division over the last 3-4 weeks since Thanksgiving. Jacksonville was 8-3. And now they sit atop the division along with Houston and along with Indianapolis. And I have no idea which team is good enough to put things aside and say, you know what, we're winning the AFC South. Much like the NFC South, I'm not riding with anything they're doing going into the postseason, regardless of who wins. What do you have, Kelly?
Well, Davey took my dumpster fire of the week, but
oh, really?
No, all jokes aside, he's not wrong. I just happened to laugh at it. Look, I think the Kansas City Chiefs have been a dumpster fire over the last few weeks, losing 4 of their last 6, and I want to go against them again this week by taking the Bengals. This one's come down from the key number of 7 down to 6.5. So hopefully you took the 7 based on my recommendation yesterday. This is a Chiefs team that we've seen in disarray. We've now had Travis Kelce go off on his podcast. We've had, we have seen Patrick Mahomes flipping out on the sideline to his offensive lineman. We have seen all of the headlines written. At some point in time, you'd think the bottom falls out. Kansas City gets it together in time for the playoffs. But I don't think so. I think this team is a dumpster fire. They are not good against the spread, and they are also not winning football games they are supposed to win. I think they're overvalued again this week. They are my dumpster fire.
We also see them drop passes over and over and over again.
Most in the NFL. I think they're at 28 right now in the season.
I think it's
not more
than that.
It probably is. It's been rough to watch. Guys, my dumpster fire of the week, I'm going to the Green Bay Packers, and I'm looking at Jair Alexander.
Okay.
Jair's been suspended for 1 game, and the reasoning was because of things that occurred during the coin toss. You might be hearing that thinking, what? So Jair this past week was not a captain when the Packers were playing the Carolina Panthers. He decided to go out there anyway, and whenever he won the toss, he said, I'm going to play we want to play defense. Ultimately, it's a terrible decision. You either say you want the ball or you're going to defer. Fortunately, the ref said, you mean you want to defer? And his teammates backed him up. Like, yeah, that's what we want to do. But when you're in a situation where you know what you need to do in these moments, if you do make the mistake, you don't follow it up in the interview by saying, I don't think coach knew I was from Charlotte. That's his reasoning for why he thought he should just go ahead and go out there and be a part of the coin toss. It's a Pro Bowl cornerback, but he's a certified dumbass, if you ask me.
Yeah, and there's plenty of those across the league with screwing things up in key moments.
I totally thought Davey was going to the Denver Broncos.
I see. They were a dumpster fire, then they were not.
Oh, they're still a dumpster fire.
Well, now it's perceived to be. But, I mean, Sean Payton looked like the worst coach in the NFL, and then he was perceived to be coach of the year, and now he's back to, now he's...
It's his birthday. No more Sean Payton slander.
I'm not. I mean, Sean Payton's there, and he's in full control because the quarterback that's getting $150 million over a year and a half is not going to be there moving forward after 2 seasons. Preview more of the college football playoff next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, final hour of the Friday edition is here for Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick network. No Chad this week. He's back next week into 2024. Kelly Stewart been crushing it as she does, does that in Vegas. Knows how to play the odds, and then also this week. Thanks for being here, Kelly. Appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me fill in. Look, it's a big seat to fill, but it's been enjoyable.
Like Chad, you make the show 10 times better. 100 times better.
Chad's pretty funny. I did the show with Chad while you were gone, and it wasn't the same because it was on Zoom. But he did a great job.
So he's snowed in right now in Nebraska. He's cold.
Still snowed in?
Yeah.
Don't they have like a snow plow or something?
Yeah, but there's snow on the ground right now, and there's a lot. Davey was even mentioning this on the photo that Chad sent. I doubt he's as cold as you are.
I'm freezing.
While in Nashville, being from Florida. I mean, you're constantly shivering.
I was just telling the restroom attendant in the bathroom. She's like, but we got you sun one day. I'm like, yeah. I was walking in the Gulch.
You've been saying it's going to snow here for like 4 days straight.
Oh, well, I was told that it was going to snow, and it has not. But it definitely had cold rain the other night.
Okay. Well.
It's not cold enough to flurry.
Just cold. So we mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. and whether or not he's going to play. Here's why he's not going to play. Because he's going to be, a top 3 pick?
I think he should be a top 2 pick. That's my personal opinion. But
top 10, first round, whatever. The picks are slotted for the contracts. If he is just compare it to C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud, as the number 2 pick, guaranteed is 4 years, $36 million. There's no way you're going to risk that and fall down further into the first round where you're getting 18 instead of 36. There's a significant drop-off in the pay at the end of the first round compared to the very top where he would be. He's got to sit out the bowl game. I understand like the significance of that, but I mean, I also the business of what this is now, and the NFL doesn't care if you sit out the bowl game. There's no reason to play the game, Kelly. Even though there's still some uncertainty about it.
Do you ever think like maybe there's like some loyalty to your coach, to your team, to your fan base, wanting to go out on a high note?
Like Brock Bowers did. He's a back-to-back national champion, and he came back and played this season for Georgia.
I mean, Cooper Beebe yesterday had no reason to play in the K-State bowl game. Zero reason. He and 3 other seniors on that offensive line, and they came out after the game, and, you know, no one got hurt, right? So that was good news. And they said, hey, we wanted to come out and play for Avery, who was the true freshman quarterback that got started, and we wanted to play for Connor Riley, who's going to be the new offensive coordinator. Sometimes some things are bigger than money, but yes, I would agree. I mean, we're talking a significant amount of money. And don't forget, some of these agents already have insurance policies in place if these guys do get hurt.
Right, but the second contract is affected by that too. You may go to a better team, but the guaranteed money is what you're giving up on. The guarantee of $36 million. And you know, Brock Bowers came back and finished with Georgia. He had a chance to go for a three-peat there. He's not going to play due to an ankle injury in the Orange Bowl. So, you know, there's that to factor in. And that's a smart play too, because he would have played in the semifinal had Georgia won against Alabama. Just throwing that there. Also, I mean, compared to the $36 million for Marvin Harrison Jr., you also have big money for endorsements like Travis Kelce's getting.
Oh, well, that's a whole nother argument. Really quickly before we get into Travis Kelce, Marvin Harrison Jr. is getting a ton of money in NIL. And that's why I think we're seeing a lot of these guys stay for that additional year. I don't know what Brock Bowers got to come back for an additional year, but keep that in mind.
Not worth it.
You don't think it's worth it to play in
college? He's already being rumored to go number 1 overall. No, it's not worth it. It's nowhere close to the money you get.
All right, so on to Travis Kelce. I got a text when I was in the bathroom, and my girlfriend said, what do you think Travis Kelce makes a year? And I was like, I don't know, 9, 10 million. She goes, 14 million. And she goes, what do you think he got paid for his Pfizer commercial? $20 million for his Pfizer commercial. I was floored. So
$20 million.
Being Mr. Pfizer's not so bad after all, Aaron Rodgers.
So he has he has a $22.7 million contract. That's what he started with. Let me see. That's the guarantee. Excuse me. 2021, he received a guaranteed roster bonus of $7 million. His net worth estimated to be $30 million, and he gets reported $20 million for Pfizer.
I think that's funny though, because his girlfriend is a legitimate billionaire. Well, so what is $20 million?
Well, that's the value of being. I mean, I guess it still happens. The stretch run where it started against the Chicago Bears, 45-10 beatdown, had 20+ million viewers on a regional broadcast that the network went. They switched to that blowout game to boost the numbers, and they did. You're getting the Kelce paired with Taylor Swift effect with this too. That's also part of this payment.
It is, and I said,
you see Kelce, you automatically think of Taylor Swift. You think of superstar.
Are you kidding me? My buddy Ben has a daughter that, and Ben does very well in life, so I can understand why he can afford to go to multiple Taylor Swift concerts.
Yes.
His daughter got a Travis Kelce, living in Las Vegas, has a Travis Kelce jersey. That's what she wanted for Christmas. She does not watch football.
Right.
And now she wants to be on board because that's what Taylor's doing.
It's everyone's like, oh, but Taylor's on TV, right? But now it's all about Kelce on TV with Pfizer. We can't even ask the candidates in the debates about with this. That's how much money Pfizer has behind all this. It's crazy. Kelce should have asked for more.
Should have asked for more?
Yeah. Why not?
Do you think he's worth more than that? Oh, he might be now, because he started doing these commercials, a few months ago? Yeah. Right, when the whole thing, listen,
turn and smile at the camera. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. Put on these Band-Aids, turn and smile at the camera. We got you. Here's $20 million. His PR firm that he hired to start this season, we talked about marketing earlier. Oh my gosh. They have just catapulted this man.
Davey, you have an update on Ohio State?
I do. So they technically do not have a single player that is opted out. Now, they do have players that have gone to the transfer portal, Kyle McCord.
Okay.
And the reason behind this, and this is just me speculating at this point, I don't think there's a coach in college football that has more pressure on him right now than Ryan Day. And while he's been good, he can't beat Michigan. And if you look at this is going to be a big jumping off point for this team as they head into the offseason because they don't currently have their future quarterback. They're losing.
Is it really going to be a jumping off point because of that?
Not because of the quarterback, but they do need to win this game if you're looking at it because Missouri's viewed as an inferior opponent to everyone in that Ohio State program fan base. And so if Ryan Day loses this, you want to talk about turning the pressure up. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to opt out, but he's just not announced it yet.
Right.
And there's going to be a lot of other players that do that. And it goes back, we were talking about this before the game with the strategy that some coaches think, well, if I can just hold off on having any player make an announcement, it's going to be to our team's benefit whenever the other team is having to scout us. They're having to prepare their game plan, especially whenever you're looking at a month to prepare for these teams. And so the fact that not a single Ohio State player has opted out when we know they have a lot of players that will be playing or being drafted in this year's NFL draft, it just tells me Ryan Day is scared.
Well, next year, the hot seat is going to be turned up regardless of the outcome of this game. No one's going to be talking about the Missouri matchup in January. And what happens with them? No one. It's just Michigan. He lost to Michigan without Harbaugh on the sideline. It comes down to that.
How much longer does Ryan Day get away with that? Because from Ohio State fans that I know,
they've dominated except for that.
Exactly. It's not that. Okay, so let me tell you this. As a K-State fan,
okay,
I am not happy that they lost the wonky game with a long field goal to Mizzou.
Right.
I'm definitely not happy that Will Howard threw 3 picks to Oklahoma State.
Okay.
And I don't like the snow game
in
I loved
Iowa
it.
State. I know you don't like it based on the result.
Right. Those 3 losses were garbage. If you want, ask me, the only thing that matters is we went into Lawrence and we beat KU. That's the only thing that really matters. From what is expected, and they went to a bowl game and won. So I think from an Ohio State standpoint, they do all the other things except for beat that rival. Eventually, they're going to start calling for his head. They did it with Jim Tressel.
They were doing it last year.
I haven't heard it as much.
They could have matched up in the national championship game.
Well, kicking is for losers, as we say on another podcast that I do, because Ryan Day didn't play to win that game. He played for the field goal, and that was the wrong move, and they lost that game because of him.
So, but I think the perception of that game, and Davey, jump in if you want, I don't hear about the loss to Georgia. I hear about the loss to Michigan. He's 56-7 as a head coach at Ohio State. All you hear about is that he can't beat Harbaugh and Michigan. And they just lost to Michigan again without Harbaugh there.
I think you might hear a little bit more about the Georgia game had Marvin Harrison Jr. not been injured. Because that's the excuse they got. It's like our best weapon went out with a head injury.
Sure.
It was still close. We still had a chance to kick the field goal. So it's a huge year for Ryan Day. Now, fortunately for him, he's probably not going to have to worry about Jim Harbaugh. So, but then again, you look at it on the other side, the intensity heats up because if he can't beat a first-year head coach in Michigan, then they're all going to want him fired.
Yep, that is exactly right. If he does not beat Michigan next year and Harbaugh's in the NFL, you're absolutely right. They are going to come for his head.
I turn it up a bit because of what Billy Lucci told us Texas A&M did. They called Ryan Day to see if he was interested to be the head coach in College Station.
And
within the coaches. And Day said no. And it was just after the Michigan loss. Again, it's more the perception of that rivalry, which is nuts because he's a really good coach.
Yeah.
It's all about that matchup in Columbus.
And he'll easily be able to find a landing spot if things don't work out for Ohio State.
Well, of course.
But you can tell it's eating at the guy. It's been, they've not beat Michigan since 2019, I believe, right?
I was going to say 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Now, they would have beaten them had Michigan not chickened out and canceled the year of COVID, but.
Or stolen signs.
Oh, boy.
More than likely.
Again, that's what he can point to. He's allegedly, that's what Michigan said. Big Ten said they couldn't prove it and said they had nothing to do with the connection on the investigation, the private investigators. But he was mentioned as being connected to that firm. That's what he's going to point to in those losses. But he still lost without Harbaugh there and after Connor Stallions. that's what Michigan will point to. Like, hey, look at our record afterwards. We haven't lost. His record against top 5 opponents, Ohio State, 2-5 against top 5 opponents in the coaches poll at the time of the matchup.
Missouri right now, they're 9th. So if you beat them, you get to hang your hat on a top 10 win to close out the year with a backup quarterback. Because like we talked about, Kyle McCord's not going to be there. So that's just something he's going to be able to point to and be like, hey, listen, we're almost there. Just give me more time.
And he's compared to Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel. That's the other part of it.
That's why it always sucks to be the guy after the guy.
But the success rate is there. Postseason-wise, again, I just look at the regular season matchup against Michigan first because that's all you have to mention. You don't mention like a top 5 matchup or, again, 56-7 speaks for itself. Matchup against Clemson or Georgia or whatever. It comes down to Michigan. And Missouri's ability to win, they are charged up for this. The opt-outs compared to what Ohio State will have, Dave, and it's a good point, that's going to factor in a massive way. What does it mean if Missouri loses to Ohio State? Just back to, Ohio State has, rinse and repeat as backups? Or is it Missouri, not that they were some mirage, but it's Missouri. We just look at it the same way.
I'm trying to figure out what I know about Devin Brown.
Get ready
the backup quarterback.
Got to score because I got to score a boatload of points with Missouri.
Think the difference is Missouri was projected to win 7 games. They're now playing for a Cotton Bowl.
Yes.
Against Ohio State. I think Columbia is buzzing. Eli Drinkwitz, who I've seen on Twitter called Eli Dorkwitz, more times than I can count, is all of a sudden changing his entire persona. He's finally getting the respect.
He's this year's Shane Beamer, right?
It is. So I don't think whether they win or lose this game, it matters for Mizzou. This is already a big step up from where they've been.
It'll be their 11th win this year. That's crazy. And meanwhile, 11-2 for Ohio State is considered a rebuild year, just like Saban would say at Alabama.
Correct.
That's the difference.
This would be a huge win for Mizzou. I would agree with that. But I will say, I don't think that if Ohio State loses this game, they can say, well, we had all these opt-outs, yada, yada, yada. Nobody cared to be there. Right. We didn't beat Michigan. We didn't get to go to a Big Ten championship game, and not enough other teams lost to get us in the college football playoff. So be it. But Mizzou was never supposed to be here.
No.
So for them, this is huge. And I do think that they are going to put up a fight. And I'm looking at it right now. I'm going, if Mizzou gets back to 6, I've got Ohio State +2 in pocket. Do I want to come back? And maybe Ohio State sneaks out a short, field goal win here.
Is that line already factoring in the opt-outs that we haven't heard about?
Yes. So the line opened Mizzou +6. Mm-hmm. All of the opt-outs started getting announced. It went to Mizzou as a 2.5-point favorite and now has come all the way back to Ohio State -5.5. That is how crazy this number has been. So regardless, you should be laying the best number or taking the best number in this game. Like, I never once wanted to bet Mizzou. When everybody panic bet Mizzou at +2, I was like, what are you guys doing? You're way too late to the party here. Oh, well, all Ohio State's people have opted out. And I'm like, yeah, and they're probably still going to win. Talent-wise, this team is hand over fist better than Mizzou. Now that it's coming back and it might sniff a touchdown, I might have to take Mizzou here.
Missouri was predicted to finish 6th in the SEC East before the season.
They're like the 2 years ago Arkansas and last year's South Carolina Gamecocks.
Yep.
But I buy into what they've done more because it's been consistent. Even in the shootout games, they've won those, unlike last year.
What I don't understand is why Kyle McCord goes to Syracuse.
Right.
So that Will Howard from K-State can go be the starter. Something doesn't add up there. I'm really curious to see how Devin Brown plays in this Cotton Bowl and what that means for Ohio State going forward and who they pick up in the transfer portal.
Coming up, NFL discussion with Clay Harbor, former NFL pro football player. We will dive into the matchups this weekend and ask him about if he's nervous to co-host on OutKick.
depends on certain things, but I feel like now it's like a teammate. Like that should be your partner, your teammate. Like I'm not cleaning all the house all the time because I'm not your mom.
I agree. We're double income, no kids, so I really like a partnership, but I don't want to take the trash out. Yeah. So he's gonna have to do that.
She takes the kids, I provide. Very traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that more young people should do that?
Yes. Very much so.
What is it about like a motherly quality that you like?
It's worked for thousands of years and it still works today.
I like being girly. I'm a girl and I like being girly, so I like traditional to girls.
Okay, well, according to the 7 Hermetic principles, one of those being the law of gender, gender manifests on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all levels. Throughout the cosmos, there's gender. I don't know, it's a lot. It's a book I read called The Supreme Way of Men or Women or something like that, and it spoke on how whether it's 2 women or 2 men, there still has to be someone who's masculine, someone who's feminine.
What would you spend on an engagement ring?
I'm not an engagement ring type of person. But if she wanted a ring, I'd probably spend like 20 on it.
20 what?
1,000.
20,000. That's a lot of money.
Hey, and shit.
You don't get that lady a real answer.
No, for real. Ain't it how much you make though?
Price, I didn't really care. Size, absolutely. Had to be big enough it could be seen, and I didn't want like a basic ring. I wanted like eclectic, like vintage looking. Okay. So we did a custom order to do my ring. I didn't have a preference. I just had a gold preference, and he kind of took it from there.
And you trusted him. Did he crush it?
Oh yeah, he crushed it.
I've been spoiled thus far, and so I don't think I could ever go back from what I received last time.
Okay, so high standards. That's good. What are the standards?
Okay, it was 5 carats.
Okay.
And it was beautiful.
Mine was way too expensive.
What's way too expensive?
Like $45,000.
Okay. Wow. You probably went with a real diamond.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of a flex for the guy? Like, is the engagement ring, is the engagement ring only for the girl, or do you get to watch other people look at your girl's ring?
Solely for the girl. Solely for the girl.
You don't get any enjoyment?
Couldn't care less.
Red flags in dating, because obviously you found each other. Did you have any icks that you overlooked, or is he perfect?
No, he's perfect. We had a nice night out at the bar. Fought over a toy shark, and that's how it all got started.
What don't you like? Red flags?
Cheating, lying, stuff like that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What are you looking for in a woman?
Honesty, respect, in love for herself.
Some green flags are loyalty and trustworthy. Red flags are seeking attention from other women.
Jealousy, probably biggest thing, especially being around other girls all the time and having other girlfriends. That would be the number one thing, is jealousy.
Red flag is they're on their phone too much. Green flag is they're on their phone a lot with you.
Well, look for loyalty. That's it. I'm 24, so it's hard to come across that like when you're young. So that's really all I look for, really, honestly.
What were deal breakers?
If she was broke. I know that sounds crazy, but for real, if she was broke. Cause like it's like, yeah, like I don't want to take care of a motherfucker. Like I want to equal.
Happy holidays and Happy New Year to you. We're live across the OutKick Network. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow. Kelly Stewart in for Chad this week. Wrapping up the Friday edition and headed into a long weekend with tons of football, which we'll preview in a moment. Starting January 3rd, Kelly, we'll watch the show at our website.
OutKick.com/watch. That is going to be the only place you're going to be able to watch this show and other original and fearless shows live on our website, OutKick.com/watch. Your one-stop shop for all things OutKick.
And you can catch our next guest co-hosting and filling in on Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern on OutKick the Morning with Charlie Arnault. It's Clay Harper, who joins us now, former NFL tight end, who hops on with us here at OutKick. Clay, good to see you, man. Hope things are well.
Oh, things are great, man. Besides the fact that I ate a little bit too much food over the Christmas holiday, and I'm trying to get back in the gym here and work some of it off. But hope you guys had a great Christmas holiday like I did. But it's time to get back to work and work some of those calories off.
Hey, I teased going into the break. I was like, we'll find out if he's nervous about hosting the show. I seriously doubt that based on the reps. But I know you're looking forward to it Tuesday.
Oh, I can't wait, man. Looking forward to it for sure. Obviously, there's a little bit of nerves there, but I've played in front of 100,000 fans before, but that's different because you're going out of the tunnel. There's 11 guys on your team, 11 guys on the other team. So there's a lot of other stuff going on. So you don't really focus on the, being the solo guy there. So I've done some cool stuff and in speaking engagements as well, but I'm definitely excited for it and looking forward to the opportunity.
Comeback player of the year right now. Is it Flacco? Is it DeMar Hamlin? Or Baker Mayfield? I think those are the three, and I can make a case for all three.
That's a tough one, but for me, I got to go with Joe Flacco. And half the reason is because I know how difficult it is. This guy was sitting on his couch eating potato chips. No, he probably wasn't doing that. He was staying in shape. But he's literally sitting on the couch doing nothing, doesn't even know if he's going to play. He was getting ready to retire for good. You heard him talking. He was talking to his agent. They didn't know if he's going to get another opportunity. He gets the call, and he comes in, and he becomes the first player since 1989 for the Cleveland Browns, the first time to lead them to a better record than their division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers. He becomes the first person in Cleveland Brown history since 1946, since World War II ended, to put that into context, to throw for 300 yards 4 straight games for the Cleveland Browns. They clinch the playoffs, and they have a real possibility to win the AFC and get the bye week, going to the playoffs, get a bye. So in my opinion, 38 years old, Joe Flacco, off the couch, was carpooling his kids to their sporting events and being the carpool dad, and now all of a sudden he's clinched the playoffs, a chance to get a bye week. He's the player. He's a comeback player of the year. I mean, he might be more than that. He's definitely the comeback player of the year, in my opinion, Joe Flacco, but I love what Baker Mayfield has done.
He's been on fire, and he's been there for the duration. I'm curious about how that is viewed. Flacco, by the way, he's filling in. He's the 4th quarterback to play. Watson is on that $230 million fully guaranteed deal. Flacco's making now over $2 million right now because he has a $75,000 bonus for every win, and the base salary is like 1.8. So he's got that going for him. But I mean, Cleveland was already with the defense, Clay, sticking in there in the playoff hunt. I'm shocked by that because with the 4th quarterback, and as things just continue to spiral, losing Chubb earlier, I think it's tough to say, yeah, that locker room's going to stay together. I think that's another thing that helps Stefanski for Coach of the Year as well, just from the mentality of, okay, we're spiraling after all the hype. We're spiraling, and we're doing it again. We're not going to make the postseason. They did the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'd give them probably some leeway there if they did fall out of contention.
Yeah.
Because they lost their quarterbacks. You're going to say, hey, it's okay. You lost your. He didn't take that as an excuse. He tries one quarterback, moves on to the next, gets Joe Flacco in there, a veteran guy that has seen everything, coming off the 10-year anniversary to the time he won the Super Bowl. You forget this guy was a Super Bowl MVP, and his body looks good. So this guy, around that 38 years, is when some of these quarterbacks start even getting better. Obviously, mentally, it clicks for him. You keep getting better mentally, and if your body can stay healthy, you're at the best you can ever be. If I'm able to play at the age of 30 as a tight end, mentally, you're the sharpest you've ever been. And he's kept his body in shape. Whatever he's doing working, he looks like a guy that can really take his team deep in the play. You look at the AFC teams, there's nobody that scares me. They face, to me, maybe the Ravens. I say they can't beat the Ravens, but they've already beat the Ravens this year. So in my opinion, they can beat any team they play against. I think they could beat the Dolphins with that defense. I think they could beat the Ravens. I think that it's up for grabs, and it's going to be interesting to see how this thing ends, because I think they can play with anybody in the AFC. And Stefanski, we're talking about comeback player of the year. In my opinion, it's not even a race. Stefanski is the coach of the year.
And they've locked it up. They're in the postseason. We've got Clay Harper with us here on OutKick.
Yeah, let's talk more postseason. Some of the teams that are on the outside looking in, most notably for me, my Minnesota Vikings ticket is almost all but dead. Now they lose star tight end TJ Hawkinson. Being a former tight end, talk to me about how teams have to make that adjustment. They are basically a pick'em to their rival, the Green Bay Packers, this week. This is kind of a tough game for me to dive into. So talk to me about that injury and what you like between that matchup.
I'm sorry, the Vikings. I mean, I might mortgage my house and put everything on the Packers. You got Jaron Hall coming out of BYU. Yes, he's a rookie. He's a little bit older. BYU. I think he did his missions trip before he came to Minnesota. But Jaron Hall was throwing picks in college, and you're making this move from Nick Mullins, who's a guy that's throwing for a ton of yards, but he had 4 interceptions last week. But it's crazy because he had over 350 yards, but he had 4 picks. So I think maybe Hall's on a short leash, but I don't know how Jaron Hall could lead the Vikings to a victory over the Packers. It's going to be tough. Yes, I know you got the best wide receiver in the league, in my opinion, but still, with Hawkinson being out, that you're able to concentrate your coverage on that wide receiver. So now you're going to get more double teams. You don't have that threat over the middle, and they formed a symbiotic relationship. They haven't been able to play together that much, but when you have this dominant tight end and you have this dominant receiver, the defense can't focus on one guy. You're not going to be able to double the Justin Jefferson. Okay, you're not going to be able to double him because TJ Hawkinson's going to be open in the middle of the field. Now you don't got that. You don't really have a tight end weapon there. So it's going to be tough for them to win this game. Plus, you're playing Jaron Hall, a rookie quarterback's first start. I give them maybe a 5% chance to win this game. Unfortunately for the Vikings, I am a Bears fan though, so I don't mind too much, but the Packers are a bitter rival, but I think the Packers run away with this one.
All right, let's stay in the NFC North here and talk about the Lions, who finally won that division. Let's talk about them through the postseason. Could they possibly be a one-and-done type team, or do you think they have the ability to make a run here?
You know, I played with the Lions. I actually played in the last playoff game that the Lions had. Back in 2016, we played in Seattle. We ended up losing the game. It was like a 10-point game. Matthew Stafford was our starting quarterback. You know, I think it depends who the Lions play. But to me, as a Bears guy, I cover a lot of stuff for the Bears. 670 to Score Chicago, NBC Sports Chicago, do a lot of Bears coverage. And watching that game, the Lions lost to them the last game. They should have lost twice. I think if the Lions get a home game, they win. But when they go on the road, when they're outside of the dome, their offense just doesn't translate. For whatever reason, I love Jared Goff. He's a comeback story himself, what he's been able to do. But on the road, it's not the same team. In that dome, it's nice, cozy, and warm. I played in that dome. I like playing that dome. But when you go on the road, I know you're in Detroit, but when you go on the road, it's tough for that team. And I love Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell was my tight end coach when I played for the New Orleans Saints. Players love this guy. I love this guy when he was my coach. Unbelievable dude, very intelligent, really smart guy, players coach, backs up his players, goes to bat for his players. But they are one of those teams, if you don't have home field advantage, I don't think they win.
They'll have it in the first round, in wild card round at least. What happens in your mind if it's Stafford and the Rams who are on the road in Detroit?
That's going to be when you get the popcorn ready.
Yeah.
Stafford playing his old team. You got Goff wanting to prove that he is as good of a quarterback as Matt Stafford. And honestly, call me crazy, I don't think he will. But I think if Stafford ends the season well, like he has been, I think he should be in consideration, at least get a few votes for MVP of the league. What he's been able to do with Cooper Kupp's been out half the season. Puka Nacua, who is Puka? Tell me how many people in the world knew who Puka Nacua was before the season. Sam Laporta turns into the best tight end in the NFL. Like Sam Laporta is a second round draft. How's he doing it with these guys? Offensive line is supposed to be not very good. For what Stafford has been able to do with this offense, Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously you got David Montgomery, a second-rate running back coming over from Chicago, having a great year this year. What he's been able to do with these players, he needs to be in the MVP discussion. I think that's something that people aren't talking about. But I think if the Lions are home, I would take the Lions over the Rams. I do love the Rams. Obviously, you can't count out Aaron Donald. I got a scrappy defense, and I love Staff. Staff was one of my favorite quarterbacks I ever played with. One of the hardest workers. Guy would bring everybody in season at 7 a.m. to watch film. I don't miss that. But I really like Staff, but I think I'd give the edge to the Lions if they're at home.
Clay Harbor with us. Clay, what happens at quarterback for Chicago? The vibe there, given that Justin Fields he needs help around him. They're going to have 2 first-round draft picks, and the fact that we may see a new coach, may not, and they have the number 1 overall pick from Carolina.
Man, Chicago is a crazy place to be right now for all Bears fans. I mean, there's torn. It's like a civil war in Bears territory right now because half the people want to keep Justin, half of them want to draft a quarterback. And I'm split, but in my opinion, I'm not sold on Caleb Williams. I don't really like how he handles himself off the field. Obviously, you got the crying thing with his mom, all the other antics and, the things that he's doing. He wants to be a shareholder on the team when he gets drafted. Do something in the league before you start talking like that, in my opinion. Do something before you start saying you want a piece of the team ownership. So there's a lot of stuff there, and I think he's probably going to measure in 5'11", when he goes to the combine. So I'm not sold. Drake May, not sold. We have a bad taste in our mouth from North Carolina quarterbacks. Mitch Trubisky back in the day was a starter for the Bears, didn't pan out. So for me, I think you keep Fields, you trade to number 3, maybe number 4, you draft Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe Brock Bowers, get a nice receiver, a nice tight end, and you put this stuff around Fields and this defense ever since you got Montez Sweat in that trade where you gave up your second-round pick, has been playing well. Eberflus, since he's been calling the plays on defense, has been doing a pretty good job. And they're not far off this Bears team. They've lost a few games. They won one of these close games, like the game against Joe Flacco and the Browns. They're in the playoff hunt. The Bears aren't far. So in my opinion, you keep Justin. He's going to get better. He's only 24 years old, one of the most dynamic players in the league. And then you put some more weapons around him. And I think you have a playoff team that can compete because nobody in the NFC is really scaring me that much.
What do you think Fields is going to command in the extension if they keep him? Because he's eligible, right?
Yeah, they can do the 5th-year option, but I think he gets like a Daniel Jones type contract, 3 years. I think it was like $80 million, something like that. But these even if you're a decent quarterback, you don't have to be great. You're going to get paid. I mean, it's just the way the league is. If you're a quarterback and you're getting a second contract, you are going to break the bank because that's just the name of the game. It's a quarterback-driven league, and they have to pay their quarterback. So there's also that. If you get a rookie and you pay Justin Fields, you're probably working for about $25 million more per year with a rookie. So you got to think this would be Caleb Williams or Drake May and $25 million for Justin Fields. But on the flip side of that, you look to last year, what these guys are saying, draft Bryce Young. It could have been CJ Stroud, which would have been an upgrade, I think. But if you draft Bryce Young, you don't have DJ Moore. You don't get Tyreek Stevenson in the second round. You don't get this year's first-round pick, and you don't get Darnell Wright. You take those 3 players and draft picks off the Bears team, they're already good. You can get that same haul this year and put those players around Justin Fields again. It's unprecedented. You're going to have a 49ers-type all-star team for at least a couple years.
Well, and you just finished in the 4th quarter this year. You've got a couple more wins, if not 3, and you're leading the division right now. Clay Harbor with us. Final thoughts here in the final 45 seconds, Clay. Miami. The thought was they can't beat good teams. If they finish the year with the win that they had against Dallas and then Baltimore, the perception is going to be way different.
Oh, absolutely. And I like this Miami team. I thought, they played a heck of a game against Dallas, and I'm a Tua believer. I think Tua's got unfair, shakedown ever since he's been out of college. I think Tua does a pretty good job. Even when you saw Tyreek Hill wasn't playing last week, they were still able to get the win. He was getting the ball to Jalen Waddle. So I think the Dolphins are one of the best teams. They got a solid defense. Obviously, they got one of the best offenses in the league right now with Tyreek healthy, Jalen Waddle healthy, with these running backs, with Tua getting the ball out like he can. One of the quickest guys to get rid of the ball in the entire NFL. I think he's 3rd. So you're not going to be able to be affected by a lot of these pass rushers because he gets rid of the ball so fast. So I think the Dolphins, in my opinion, are one of my favorites to win this AFC. The Chiefs aren't the Chiefs anymore. We can say that. I like Baltimore, but for whatever reason, even after beating the 49ers, I'm not sold on the Ravens. I'm not sold. Look at Lamar in the playoffs. He's 1-3 in his career. He's got a 65 quarterback rating. You got to show me you can do in the playoffs before I start to believe in you, Baltimore. I'm sorry. So in my opinion, the Dolphins have a really good shot because there's no front runners right now. It's a wide open AFC, and I'm not believing in the Ravens. So if the Dolphins can go into the playoffs with a little bit of momentum, keep this thing going, I really like what they can do.
Clay Harbor, you can catch him on OutKick the Morning Tuesday. Looking forward to that, Clay, and thanks for the visit.
Of course. Appreciate it, guys.
Stay tuned. More coming here on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on, pull it up. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Taste of a Southern legend.
Sixth and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, our location each and every day here at the studio. Hot Mic with Hunter Withrow rolls on. Kelly Stewart, one segment to go. Late flight back to Florida, and I would be nervous. Late flights.
What does that mean?
You don't have an option to back it up very much if you.
Oh, you mean like if it gets
delayed.
canceled or delayed? Yeah, you're just stuck at the airport for all eternity.
Yeah, at least you may be warm there.
Yes.
Warmer.
Yes, I'm going to put on all the jackets.
You went and bought a shirt today.
I did.
After your stylist gave you so much.
She gave me a very cute
your
outfit.
entire closet.
She gave me a very cute outfit, but I needed a long sleeve.
Okay. And, packing for warm and then cold makes for a bit of a challenge. I get it.
Yes.
I would have also had to check a bag. I'm not ripping you for that.
Free bags on Southwest. What do you want from me?
Well, you know why? Because they won't let you put it in the overhead bin anymore. They won't.
Yes, they will. If the little ones they can go, they can go.
If it fits if you can test it and it fits there, it should be able to go up if I'm boarding A23.
Yeah, but you're talking about when you have because B&A, I've noticed a lot of flights from Tampa go to B&A to then Vegas or to other places. And so I could see that where half your flight's full when even though you're an A group, half
My
your
most
flight's
recent
still full.
flight didn't have that. It was just I can't put the bags up here already. I have to wait. It was crazy. Need to fix this. I may need to fix my pick for my NFL Moneymaker lock because Kelly, throughout the show, has gone against both of my options I was contemplating, and she didn't know this in advance. I'm going with Tampa Bay, and I'm laying 3 points. At least that's what the line was last night. I'm laying 3 points. Tampa Bay against New Orleans, and I'm riding the streak and the hot hand of Baker Mayfield. Why would I go against Baker Mayfield when I don't care anymore about Derek Carr?
That's fine.
And he's thrown for over 300 yards just 6 times this year in what has been practically field goal games in New Orleans. Meanwhile, Baker has been lighting it up, and the Bucs are they're headed towards the NFC South Championship. Why would you go against? Talk me off the ledger. Why would you go against Baker and the Bucs this week?
It's not going against Baker and the Bucs. I think this is a sell high spot for this team that I also was high on the last couple of weeks. Look,
you mentioned 2 games, and you like Baltimore and you like New Orleans, and I like Miami and I like Tampa Bay.
Okay, Baker Mayfield, you're over here ready to give him comeback player of the year,
Yes.
as are everybody else's quotes that you're reading. Look, I agree. He has been successful. They have been better at home. I think that they're in a nice groove. Their defense is playing better.
Okay.
I don't like the Saints team whatsoever, but we're talking about a divisional game
Yes.
with teams that are both 7-8, 8-7. This is going to be like a 1-point game. It's going to be 21-20 final, and you're going to be pissed that you have 2.5 now down from 3. And let me tell you how much money that takes to move that number down. I think the Saints are a perfect teaser spot for this week with the low total of 42. So I'm not going to go against you. I'm just going to kind of disagree with you and say I hope the Saints keep it within a touchdown.
Your NFL Moneymaker lock, please.
I don't have one of those. I don't use L words in my life because there is no such thing.
No
but
blood bank guarantees?
No blood
No
bank.
buckets? Nothing?
I do have a best bet this week, and we kind of spoke about it earlier. It's a bet against the Las Vegas Raiders. I bet against them last week, and their defense really showed up. This is a Colts team, as I mentioned earlier, controls their own destiny. I know they laid an egg last Sunday, and I did bet against them. I laid the one with the Falcons, and that closed 3, by the way. I was terrified that I was going to lose that CLV trophy. But we'll see kind of what goes on here. Pittman is going to be a go, it looks like. Still haven't heard about Jonathan Taylor by anything I've read.
Looks like he's a go.
Just
Just
that's what they're
searching
saying.
his name, yeah.
Yeah. So we will see how that goes. Aiden O'Connell, we know he's not a very good quarterback. I think this Raiders team kind of falls back into their more recent form that was not beating up on the Chargers and the broken Chiefs.
So, Davey.
Yo.
A lot of points this week, and you're going to grab them.
I am, and it's actually the line's gotten even bigger since I put my bet in. But I'm going with the New England Patriots plus 14. They're playing at Buffalo. I just look at this team. They've not quit. When you look at, we know this is the next to last game for Bill Belichick as the head coach of the New England Patriots. His team's at least going to go out there and put forth a valiant effort. And Buffalo, they barely held on to beat the Chargers. They're coming from all the way back from the West Coast on a much shorter rest than the Pats. I just think the Pats are going to be able to make it a game. They're not going to win it, but it's not going to be an absolute blowout for the Buffalo Bills. That's why I'm locking in plus 14 for the New England Patriots.
Okay. I always, when the line is that steep, I always think about the Patriots are playing well. for what we've seen, two of the last three has gone their way. And, I mean, I think about the Titans in Miami, for instance. 14-point underdog, and they win the game on Monday night. Like, think about what that would mean for Buffalo, by the way, with what they could possibly do next week if Miami loses to Baltimore and they were to lose a game to New England. This Patriots team, they've already lost a game to New England. I don't like rematches in divisional games when it's tough to beat a team twice. But Buffalo has lost games in recent seasons and all season this year to bad opponents.
Look, I'm not...
Jets, Patriots. I mean, there's a list of this.
I said this last week. I'm trying to think of who our guest was that I asked. I said, he's like, oh, well, they don't look... We're professional athletes. We don't look ahead. Well, they sure got caught looking ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Over a Chargers team. Now, albeit they did lose at Gillette to this team, so they shouldn't be looking ahead, but you're absolutely right. This team controls their own destiny. They don't need to cover the spread to win the AFC East.
Right.
They just need to beat the Dolphins, and they just need to beat the Patriots. That doesn't mean they're going to do it by 2 touchdowns.
Well,
this is a lot of points here.
They win a lot of games in Buffalo, though, recently.
Yes, they have.
Not on the road.
You mentioned Belichick, possible last couple of games for him here. Look, New England winning this game will hurt their draft stock. Maybe that's Bill Belichick's nice parting gift on his way out the door.
I mean,
that's his style too. So I could see. I look at Buffalo. They have been playing well at home, but this just seems like a game where it's like Josh Allen just drops the ball.
I think it's maybe not even Josh Allen. I think it's up to Bailey Zappi. If Bailey Zappi does not commit more than 1 turnover, if he virtually plays mistake-free, this game's going to be a lot closer. But you're absolutely right. Josh Allen is not devoid of making some real bonehead mistakes himself from time to time.
It's the mistakes he's got to avoid. It's not the passing yards anymore. They won with him going under 100 yards passing. So the defense is playing much better. The run game that Buffalo's not known for, they're running the football very well. They should just – that line is steep for a reason, I know. But I like Davey here of the picks. And just thinking about the style of this game, the weather, time of year, and what the impact will be for Buffalo. Yeah.
Do you guys know, I found this stat fascinating, the last time that Josh Allen did not have a turnover in consecutive regular season starts?
Was it last game of the year and going into the playoffs?
It was 2020.
Was that the playoff 2021 January when they went to?
No, this was in mid-December in 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. Since 2018, he's got 75 interceptions, which is the most in the NFL, 56 fumbles. Since that same time, also most in the NFL.
Guys, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Going into 2024. The best and worst of 2023. And the hype around the New York Jets that we are going to hear this coming offseason will be more than what we had last offseason. It will be more than what the Aaron Rodgers saga was in Green Bay. It continues to just mount and mount and mount. And Rodgers will play into this. I say the worst of 2023 is Rodgers injured with the Achilles on the 4th snap, because it was highly thought that the Jets are the Super Bowl team. I wanted him to have to prove it, so we end all of this discussion. And here we go again into another saga-filled Aaron Rodgers offseason with the Jets and their defense and Saleh. They're going to run it back, and it's going to be Rodgers that's going to be calling all of the shots because they need more help on the offensive line. They need more help at wide receiver. They're going to continue to do that based on what Rodgers wants, and he wanted to be on the active roster to finish the season and make a point. Again, Rodgers, injury, 4th snap, my worst.
Oh, man. Can you imagine this time next year when we're talking about Aaron Rodgers being the heavy favorite to win Comeback Player of the Year?
If he's Comeback Player of the Year, he'll be the MVP favorite, too.
Oh, boy. Let's see. This is kind of tough for me because I'm really good at picking out all the bad things and I forget remembering the good things.
Okay.
But I'm trying to think. You guys said, hey, give us your worst gambling beat of the year. There was 2 of them.
Bad beats.
One was Texas Tech catching a touchdown, a little over a touchdown at home to Oregon.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Driving.
Week 2.
Opportunity, and they throw a pick 6. Oregon doesn't go down, runs it in, lose by 8. And then Mizzou followed it up with LSU 3 weeks later. The exact same scenario. Brady Cook interception. LSU defender does not go down, runs it in, lose by 8. So I don't know which one was worse. Probably the Texas Tech one because I was at home and a bunch of people were over watching the game and I threw a massive fit.
I would have guessed LSU just based on what was perceived to be a great LSU team, and it wasn't. And Missouri was scoring how many points? 40 plus in that game?
Fair enough.
Both sucked for you.
Yeah, they both did suck.
Guys, my worst moment, it's one that's currently happening. If you're looking at the Detroit Pistons, they had a chance. They were up 19 on the Celtics last night, and then they managed to blow it in overtime, and they extend their losing streak to 27. But it's not just this current season. If you were to take the 23 calendar year for the Detroit Pistons, they are 9-78.
To
put it
the
in another,
pressure on the Lions to save the city is enormous.
The Arizona Diamondbacks have won more recently than the Detroit Pistons. If you went on a hunger strike for the last time the Pistons had a win, you would be dead. So that's why it's just been absolutely atrocious. And that's why they're the worst of 2023 for me.
My best is the NCAA tournament, top to bottom. This is where the portal has impacted in a major way on the positive side for me, college basketball. Because the tournament is so unpredictable now, and it's the parity is there's much more. I think we're seeing it play out right now in the following season, and the impact it's had on the early rounds and the runs of the Cinderellas. I mean, what is a Cinderella now with the consistency of the lower seeds and what we're seeing across college hoops? I loved it. I loved the fact that we get the run to the Final Four. And we'll get more buy-in, even though the ratings weren't great. We'll get more buy-in because I think everyone will believe that an 8 seed, a 9 seed, a 10 seed has that quality player that wasn't getting the reps, was coming off the bench, was a starter, but, well, they didn't hit it off with the coach at the end of the year, whatever. I love it. I don't like it in college football because what we're getting in the bowl games. I love it for college basketball.
Yeah, like Fairleigh Dickinson, just... I mean,
FAU.
FAU was a great story
at the Garden
until it wasn't. No, in the college basketball season last year, there we go. I'll capitalize on that. That was the best college basketball season I've ever had. I also won a college basketball season wins total with San Diego State. I did not have UConn, but we still ended up getting it because we got such a cheap buy-in on San Diego State. That was huge. That was a big win for us.
That's your best?
That was the best probably moment. And it wasn't even just the moment. It was like a great 3.5 weeks. As you mentioned, college basketball, K-State at the Garden, getting to my aunt in New York City for the first time. That was awesome. And then being at a bar in Hoboken and San Diego State's down like 8. I'm just like, I'm going to the bathroom. I quit. I'm done. And I come back and the game's tied and grinding out the game with some of my favorite people.
Davey, your best?
It's got to be the appreciation for Creed. They've really made a comeback. I'm just throwing it out there. Not only have they made a comeback in the hearts of every American out there.
Comeback band of the year.
I mean, they've announced that they're doing a reunion tour. There's the Creed Cruise. I mean, it's just one hit after another.
Cruise. Are you going to be attending that?
Nah, it costs too much, and it's sold out too quickly. But no worries. They're coming to Nashville in August.
It's on the wait list, and I said it's unfortunate that Davey is a man because the wait list is going to be highly investigated, and those that are the women, they'll be on the Creed Cruise if they have extra tickets. Happy New Year to you. See you in 2024. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Kelly, thank you. Davey as well, and the entire crew here across OutKick.